to order. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here this evening to entertain three agendas, I guess. Two publicly. One is the Committee of the Whole agenda that is in your packages, as well as the Council meeting that we're hoping will ratify most of, if not all, the discussion that's going to be discussed during Committee of the Whole. And then thirdly is our closed session meeting that we're going to be that's going to be following our Council meeting. So with that, I will ask Councillor Frank Danch to start us off with a prayer, and that will be followed by Mr. Joe Longfellow with the National Anthem. Councillor Danch.
Almighty and eternal God, your Son Jesus triumphed over the prince of demons and freed us from bondage to sin. Help us stand firm against every assault of Satan and enable us to do your will. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, who lives and reigns with you, one God, now and forever. Amen.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Joe. Well done as always.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My pleasure as always.
Members of Council, actually, Madam Clerk, introduction of any addendum items.
Thank you. None this evening.
Thank you, Ashley. Members of Council, I'll be looking for confirmation of the agenda, please. Councillor Steele. Councillor Bodner, any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening? With no disclosures, move on to determination of committee items requiring separate discussion. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move item number 8, please.
Okay. Any further items, members? And if I can have someone lift item 1 and item 9, please. Councillor Steele. Wonderful. The remainder of the items, if I can have a mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Desmarais, seconded by Councillor Doucette. For questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. We do have some presentations, and I'll be making those from the podium. Members of Council and those watching on COGECO and in the gallery, it's always with mixed emotion when you step to this podium on your behalf and recognize an individual that is now leaving us to retire, and I would only assume to find some greener pastures in his retirement. And this evening is no different, that we take the opportunity to recognize a great part of our team, although a person that wasn't here that long, still a wonderful part of our team, and probably for the most part, even though he was here for 2 years only, probably did about 10 years worth of work with respect to a lot of the issues and projects that he's involved himself in. Tonight we are here to recognize this employee who has reached the age of early retirement, although you would never know it by looking at him, and has decided to step down from his position of Manager of Community Services. And if I can call Gary Makins to come on up here and join me. And for those folks that may not know Gary's background, Gary joined the City of Port Colborne in the spring of 2010 after the retirement of Mr. Tom Lannon. Gary has spent his entire working career in the recreation field, first with the City of Hamilton. He started as a program organizer, moving up to a arena manager, then Center Supervisor, and finally District Manager of Community Services, Culture, Recreation Division for the City of Hamilton. And a lot of fun you must have had in the City of Hamilton, especially with all the facilities.
Amalgamation,
Yeah, until amalgamation, right. But again, working with facilities and people, everything from the smaller single rink arena, double rink, 4 pads, all the way up to Ivor Stadium, and facilities of that size, and of course in partnership with people and organizations, whether it be the community or the institutions such as McMaster University and of course the different schools throughout the City of Hamilton. Coming to the City of Port Colborne, I'm sure was a big change, not only of environment from the City of Hamilton, but going from a large city to a small city, I'm sure was somewhat different for Gary. But he quickly adapted to our hands-on approach. I can say with a great deal of confidence that we all knew, including Gary knew, that he had big shoes to fill in filling the shoes of Tom Lannon. But he did. Quite frankly, Gary came in and took on that approach that Tom left with respect to being hands-on, and did it with vigor and did it successfully, and we're so happy he did because of all the issues and the different projects that Gary's involved himself with. Gary has been instrumental in getting the programming aspect of our, not only the entire community within all our assets, all our facilities, but in particular within all aspects, programming aspects of our new Valet Health and Wellness Center up and running, partnerships formed, and ready to go to then take us from 14 to 20 programs to over 240 programs here in the City of Port Colborne, in particular in partnership with the YMCA. He also took on the task of special events and has worked many, many long days and long hours throughout the last 2 Canal Days, Flavors of Niagara, and the many other activities that we do have here in the City of Port Colborne. It's always, again, with mixed feelings that we do say goodbye, but I'm sure it's not goodbye. It's just good luck, and I'm sure Gary will be back here on many occasions to volunteer. We don't have to pay him now. But it's our privilege. It's actually my privilege on your behalf, an honor to present Gary with a few mementos on behalf of the entire community, so he won't forget Port Colborne in his retirement, and of course as a token of our appreciation for all the work he has done. So first off, we do have a plaque. It always seems so small, when we give someone simply a plaque. But it's the least we can do to present to Gary Makins in recognition of his 2 years here in the City of Port Colborne, of dedicated and outstanding service to the City of Port Colborne on behalf of members of City Council, Gary, but more importantly, on behalf of the entire community, the residents of the City of Port Colborne. We want to offer you this plaque as well as the mementos that we're going to give you for your contributions and your efforts that you've provided to our community, and of course they will be everlasting. And we thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Yes, that's great. That's great.
As well, we have for Gary, I'm not sure if you'll guess what it is, but
That's the reason I'm retiring. So nice.
but our traditional memento, and once again, you have to open it to show everybody what it is, but it's something that
Is it
we
your
hope.
portrait?
It's a portrait of me, yeah. They are going in all the public facilities in Port Colborne right now.
Beautiful. Look at that.
Something to throw darts at.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, with that, Gary, this is also a plaque that goes on that page.
Thank
Put it
you.
on there. It's also our pleasure this evening, and I guess it would be apropos with Gary here, to pass the torch on to the person that's going to fill now his shoes. Harry actually said to me when we were interviewing him, and let him know that he had the job, that he's a bit nervous because he had, first Tommy Lannon, now Gary Makins. So it's going to be interesting to see how I can fill these shoes. But I'll tell you something, with interviewing Harry and really seeing his background and what he's been involved in, I don't think for a second he's going to have a problem filling the shoes of both Tommy and Gary. And it's my privilege, once again, members of council, on your behalf, as well as on behalf of the entire city team here, to introduce you to Harry Hackham, our new manager of community services. Harry, come on up here. And to now have Gary pass the torch to Harry. But But just to give you some background on Harry, especially for those folks watching on COGECO, Harry began his career in recreation with the Canadian military as a civilian at CFB Baden, Germany. He oversaw the delivery of recreational programs, sports facility operations, as well as parks and special events for members of the military based in Germany. He realized then that this was his chosen field. He enjoyed it so much that he wanted to pursue the area of parks and recreation, and did just that. His professional career then brought him to southwestern Ontario, where he worked for the town of Newmarket and continued that work and actually elevated his career into the city of Windsor, and following that, most recently with the town of Essex as their director of parks and recreation. Harry is married with 2 grown children, and we look forward for Harry to settle here in the city of Port Colborne in the beautiful region of Niagara. And of course, with that, we look forward to a lot of what he's gained throughout the many years to now pass on to the residents of Port Colborne, and of course those that come in from all of Niagara and abroad. It's my pleasure to introduce members of council, members of the public, to our new director of or manager of community services, Mr. Harry Hackham. Harry.
Thank you. Through your worship, members of council and staff, I can't be happier in terms of the way the reception and the welcoming has been. I think you've got a dynamic team here. I know the community's been extremely receptive, and with whomever I've had contact with, and it's been certainly 2 weeks and a day, but it seems like I've been here a little longer.
Stay tuned.
No, but in all due respect, everything is moving along quite well. I'm quite excited about the opportunities, and I hope that I can certainly build on some of the legacies and some of the energies that Gary brought and take it forward with everyone else contributing at different parts. And that includes the community as a whole. I think that's a pivotal part for me, is to work with community organizations, work with community groups, and see what we can do to make things happen for the city of Port Colborne. Thank you.
You're up, guys.
Not yet. Oh, no, never go out. 10 years, Harry.
Members of council, moving right along. By the way, Gary, are you sure you didn't want to say anything? You sure? Thanks, Gary. He's got his fishing pole. He's got his fishing pole, and he's got everything ready to go. No, I tell you, as I said earlier, Gary, thank you for everything that you've done. I know you've taken on you've actually set the stage for the new programming that we have here in Port Colborne. Well done. Great job. Members of council, we're now going to move on to the delegations that we have this evening. We have our first delegation, Mr. Doug Rappelje, no stranger to the chamber. Doug is going to be here speaking about Alzheimer's Society, the Niagara Foundation, and with respect to the 17th Annual Coffee Break Campaign. And with that, it's in your agenda, page number 7, his correspondence. Doug, welcome as always to our chamber. Thank you very much. Just want to press the gray button and you're all set.
I just hope Gary does a better job of retiring than I did. Mayor Badaway, members of council, staff, and the public, as the mayor said, I'm Doug Rappelge. I'm past president of the Niagara Alzheimer's Society and past chair of the Alzheimer's Foundation. And I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about the 17th annual Coffee Break campaign. This concept was the inspiration of the Niagara Alzheimer's chapter many years ago and has evolved into a nationwide annual fundraiser for societies across Canada where millions of dollars have been raised. The National Coffee Break Day is Thursday, September the 20th, with more than 10,000 coffee breaks expected to take place across the country. Locally, our campaign will kick off on that day and run until December. An Alzheimer's Coffee Break is a time to invite your co-workers, clients, friends, family, or neighbors to come together to enjoy a cup of coffee or another preferred drink, I haven't figured out what that is, or food at a break time or another specific get-together in exchange for a donation. Coffee break events are held in homes, workplaces, community centers, schools, churches, city halls, retail outlets, just about anywhere. Some of the most successful events in the past have involved doing something a little different. Whether it's an open house, a barbecue, a raffle, dress-down days, selling coffee cup decals, or rounding up at the cash register. Each break truly makes a difference to the lives of those affected by this devastating disease. Hosting a coffee break is fun, social, and very easy to organize. The society supplies the kit, the host supplies the people. Each kit includes the first pot of coffee, a donation box, and promotional signs and literature. While many of the Alzheimer coffee breaks in Canada will be held on the National Day, you can certainly choose a date that is more convenient to you since our local campaign runs from September to December. Keith Abbott, franchisee of the Bulk Barn located at the Fairview Mall in St. Catharines, is this year's honorary chair. Keith will kick off the campaign on September the 20th from 11 to 3 with coffee and cake. All participating Bulk Barns stores in the Niagara region will be asking customers for donations at the register in exchange for a coffee cup deco that will be prominently displayed in each of the store locations. And we would appreciate everyone supporting their efforts. But as well, there will be coffee breaks here in Port Colborne, in Wainfleet, in Fort Erie, and throughout the region, and we ask for your support. It must be emphasized that Alzheimer's disease and related dementia are not a normal part of aging. It is a chronic disease which slowly destroys memory and reasoning, erodes independence, and eventually takes life. Currently, there is no known cure or effective means by which to delay its onset or progression. It has been described as a disease of many losses, robbing a person of their mind and taking them away from their loved ones. Throughout my career, I saw firsthand what this devastating disease does to individuals and to families and to friends. And over the 15 years I've been involved with the Alzheimer's Society, I have seen the organization grow, but at the same time, I have seen an increase in the number of people suffering from this disease and an increased demand for the services that we are trying to supply. It is estimated that 1 in 11 Canadians over the age of 65 are suffering from Alzheimer's disease or a related dementia. Here in Niagara, we have a unique challenge. We have one of the largest older populations in Canada, and yet we lack the available geriatric resources compared to other communities. Currently, there are over 8,200 people in Niagara who are experiencing a progressive dementia. These numbers are on the rise. Within a generation, dementia may affect more than 1 million people across our country. This means that someone in Canada will develop dementia every 2 minutes, an alarming increase from 1 every 5 minutes currently. While most people consider dementia to be a disease that affects only the elderly, we have learned that currently about 71,000 Canadians living with dementia are under the age of 65. We also know that as people are diagnosed early, they are in a unique and strong position to have their voices heard and obtain the support and the resources that they need to continue living meaningful lives. This year, the World Health Organization has declared dementia to be a public health priority on a worldwide basis. The burden of dementia can no longer be overlooked. People with dementia are prone to a cycle of emergency departments, use, hospitalization, and deterioration. Acute care hospital bed gridlock will continue until dementia is recognized as a center part of the alternative level of care crisis, and effective strategies focusing on dementia are put into practice by our government bodies. A recognized leader in the field of dementia care, the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara is committed to working in partnership with people who have dementia, their caregivers, and the broader community. But as well, I need to mention that we raise money to support research that hopefully will find the cure to this cruel disease. Our goal is to enhance safety and independence within the home and community, strengthen resilience and coping capacities, and ensure that people living with a dementia continue to participate in family and community life. A range of programs and services are available along the continuum of care that respond to the need for individual and home-based education, socialization, and resources in the community. However, these resources in Niagara are being overtaxed. Each year, the Society must raise approximately $600,000 of our $1.8 million budget. Coffee Break is our signature event. Thanks to this council over the years and over 300 hosts, we raised $71,000 last year. This year, more than ever, we need to count on your support to reach our goal of $100,000. Whether you host a coffee break in your home or your workplace or as part of the service club or social group activity, you will be a champion for individuals and families in Niagara. It could be your neighbor who needs your support. I encourage each and every one of you to consider hosting your own event, making your coffee event count. All of the funds we raise stay in Niagara. Anyone can register for Coffee Break Kit by simply calling the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara at 905-687-3914. That's 905-687-3914, or by visiting the website at www.alzheimersniagara.com. So again, Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to bring to your attention a disease that devastates the lives of others, and so many, but at the same time, thank this council and this community who have supported us so well over the years. And if I may, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to present you with your coffee break kit. And again, thank you for hosting an event every year. Thank you very much. Right, thank you.
Oh. Thank you, Mr. Robert J. Well done as always. Where'd he go? He took right off, eh? I guess no questions. We're now going to move on to our next delegation. We have Mr. Brian Kahn, Branch Manager of the St. John Ambulance, regarding the St. John Ambulance Therapy Dog Program. And members of council, we do have this correspondence in your agenda, and it's on page 11. Mr. Kahn, welcome. And I see you have your friends with you.
I did. I brought some.
Two-legged and four-legged.
I brought 7 legs of support. So good evening, Mayor Badway, council members, city council, and members of town staff, as well as members from the gallery. I'm here representing St. John Ambulance, Lincoln County. We cover 11 of the 12 municipalities throughout the Niagara region. Our volunteers support us in many of our programs, which include our medical first responders, our therapy dog program, our car seat technicians, our youth cadet program that we provide to the children and teens of Niagara. These volunteers give of themselves in order to help family, friends, neighbors, and even complete strangers throughout the Niagara region. Our branch has approximately 200 volunteers. And in 2011, we gave over 30,000 hours of volunteer time back to the community. And our instructors who teach CPR and first aid taught over 2,800 people the skills of CPR, first aid, et cetera. Tonight, though, I'm here to talk specifically about the therapy dog program. I have with me Angela and Casey, and Susan and Bronson. And we're here to talk about a different type of volunteer, our 4-footed friends, and in one case, a 3-footed friend. These dogs and their human handlers make up teams who will go out into the community to visit the elderly, the sick, the dying. They visit hospitals, long-term care facilities, group homes, hospices, where they share their love and perhaps stir some memories for those that they meet with thoughts of happier times. Dogs are non-judgmental. They are undeterred by human frailties. Dogs will be accepting of those with physical or mental disabilities, or those presenting with confusion or tears. They calm the distressed, distract those in discomfort, and they comfort the lonely and the shut-in. In addition to our main program, the St. John Ambulance Therapy Dogs also make up a group of teams that go out and work with children in libraries and schools. And our Pause for Stories program specifically is where children are given an opportunity to read out loud to a dog. So it gives them some practice reading out loud publicly and to someone who will just sit there quietly and listen to them. The dogs also go into the schools to work with children that might have difficulty socializing with other children. So they provide a welcome and happy break for these kids in their school days. Back in 1992, the Therapy Dog Program got its start right here in Ontario through St. John Ambulance. The program is now recognized right across the country as one of our community services that we offer. In Niagara, we have approximately 100 teams made up of men, women, and their dogs. Last year alone, these teams went out into the community and gave about 7,500 hours of community service back, which is the equivalent of 3.5 years of full-time employment. So this year we're celebrating the 20th anniversary of our therapy dogs. We're going for a walk.
Come over here.
And on behalf of these amazing animals and their dedicated handlers, I'm here to respectfully request of the Port Colborne City Council to acknowledge this special group of volunteers and in proclaiming September as St. John Ambulance Therapy Dog Month. And with that, I turn it over to you.
Thank you. Well done. Members of council, any questions or comments? Barbara, no comments? Well, we do have a proclamation that I'll be making during the council meeting. And, but other than that, members of council, no questions or comments? And if I can have a mover or a seconder to receive the recommendation? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Folks, thank you very much. Appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you very much. And if there's no questions, we will take our friends outside.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Thank you and good night.
Before they have the accidents in here. That's all right. Great having you guys out tonight. Members of council, before I move on to our next delegation, if I can have a mover and seconder for Mr. Rappeljay's presentation as well, please. Councillor Danch, Councillor Elliott, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you, members. We're now going to move on to our final delegation this evening, Mr. Mark Robinson. Mark's here to speak to us with respect to the steering committee. Request for City Council to support Aviva Community Fund competition for funding of a community project. What Mark's going to be speaking to us about today is building a permanent stage within Market Square. Once again, members of council, within your agenda on page 14 is his correspondence to us. Mark, as always, welcome to the chamber.
Thank you very much.
If you want to just press that gray button, you're all set and ready to go.
Great. If any of you are going to be following along with the document that I sent, you may get a little confused. That was a second draft, and I found more errors, so they were corrected. The most glaring one was I did not know how to spell Mr. Doucet's last name, and but he's still talking to me, so I think I'm safe. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors, city staff, guests, and my neighbors of the city of Port Colborne. My name is Mark Robinson. I'm a resident of Main Street East, Port Colborne. I've been living here for about 1.5 years. I am here this evening to speak to the possible provision of funding for a community project that would benefit the citizens of the city of Port Colborne. During the past few years, global economic conditions have impacted all Canadians. As such, it becomes increasingly challenging for any entity to fund projects that they know would improve their prosperity, as well as those of their neighbors. I do not need to remind this council that they too have experienced increasing difficulty in finding the funds for programs that would positively impact this city. Generally speaking, the typical model for moving a project forward is to plan, cost, and then attempt to locate the appropriate funding. This evening, I'm here to introduce you to the possibility of a reverse model for funding a local community project. The Aviva Community Fund is an initiative of Canadian insurance company Aviva Insurance. This company demonstrates their corporate citizenship by reserving a portion of their profits each year to fund local community projects across Canada. During the past 2 years that the Aviva Community Fund has been operating, it has provided more than $2 million to many projects in communities across the country. The third year of this funding initiative, actually it's the fourth year I found out today of this project, begins on September 24th, and this year Aviva has announced that $1 million will be available to be shared by 30 communities nationally. I've been involved as a voting participant since the fund began. I'll explain this in a little more detail in just a few moments. As a relatively new resident of Port Colborne, and observing that the city has many great ideas to improve the welfare of their citizens, I am keenly aware that many of these plans are sitting on hold for lack of funding. As such, I convened a small steering committee in June to explore the possibility of locating a worthy project that would require funding. The committee consisted of me, Councillor Yvonne Doucet, and Regional Councillor David Barrick. The committee considered many potential projects, and after 2 meetings and numerous emails, it recommends that it support part of a project that was proposed by the downtown BIA last year. The Downtown BIA presented a report to this City Council that proposed a complete renovation of the downtown Market Square. The scope of that project is well beyond the limits of funding for the Aviva Community Fund. The BIA did advise the Council that the project could be modularized, with each component being given a priority ranking. The committee was advised that the current priority, as proposed by the BIA, was the construction and deployment of a community stage. This information was confirmed by BIA Representative Mr. Gary Tolossi last week, and therefore the steering committee has elected to submit a proposal to Aviva for funding of what is unofficially termed the Port Colborne Market Square Community Stage. From here on, I'll refer to it simply as the community stage. Now let me explain briefly the Aviva Community Fund in a little more detail. As already mentioned, the fund is now entering its 4th year. The upcoming funding competition will see $1 million divided among 30 communities in Canada. A proposal must be submitted to Aviva Community Fund later this month. At this stage, it requires a general description that includes its purpose, how it could impact the local community, and an approximate project costing. I will emphasize that the initial proposal can be generalized. A detailed proposal will be required if and when this community project is awarded funding. The Aviva Community Fund has a few primary eligibility requirements, which are as follows. Number one, it must be action-oriented, simply meaning that it must be something very specific rather than just generally funding, let's say, an organization or a project. Number two, it must be local to Canada. Number three, it must benefit many. Number four, the funding is available up to $150,000 per project. Number five, the project must be completed by the end of 2013. And finally, the Aviva Community Fund prefers to be a full funding partner. In addition, after extensive discussion with the senior management of the Aviva Community Fund during the summer, I have learned that this year they will be looking for projects that speak to the theme of youth at risk. Although there is no requirement to fit a project within the theme, the proposals that will be looked at more favorably by the judges who will select the winning proposals will speak to that theme. I will speak to this a little more in a moment. The process for applying for funding is really quite simple. The proposal must be submitted, and then the community participation is up to 4 voting rounds. Earlier I mentioned that I have participated as a voting participant. After a proposal is submitted, it is incumbent upon the local community to be involved in the form of voting. We all here recall the recent success of the City of Port Colborne receiving funding for our local fishing tourism industry as a result of community participation by voting on the internet. The Aviva Community Fund uses the same model. Public voting will take place between October and November. Although it accounts for just 20% of the weighting in the overall process of selecting a winner or selecting winners, without the voting, our proposal is guaranteed not to receive any funding. Successful proposals are those that survive up to 4 rounds of voting and are selected as finalists. All finalists are guaranteed to receive some funding. By that, I mean that they are guaranteed a minimum of $5,000 and up to the lesser of $150,000 or the estimated project costing. In discussion with the BIA and reviewing their project proposal, the basic estimated costing of the local community stage here by itself is about $50,000. As there are other obligatory costs such as planning and some components that would be required that are not necessarily a direct cost of stage construction, we are planning at this time to submit a proposal for approximately $100,000, which is considered a medium-funded project by Aviva. We will begin writing the proposal later this week, and with fine-tuning, we'll have a more accurate ballpark cost. I would like to emphasize again that a formal proposal to Aviva only requires a ballpark cost at this point. With respect to youth at risk, a community stage could be yet another local initiative to help our local youth. Our community has its share of students that do not continue their education to completion, and we know that this places their future at risk. We also know that everyone, but especially young persons, are often attracted to anything that involves music and theater arts. As such, a community stage could be yet another venue for our youth to learn and practice their artistic skills. We all know that the primary selling point of the community stage is to help support the local business community, especially by enhancing the weekly farmers market. What better venue than this for our youth to gain new skills which could influence them to stay in school, as well as to find productive things to do other than hang on the street. That leads me to a request to the City Council. I am requesting that the Port Colborne City Council support this initiative. Now, what do I mean by that support? You may recall that the list of primary requirements by Aviva, they prefer to be a full funding partner. Although they have provided partial funding in the past, I have been advised that to submit such a proposal would minimize the chance of being selected. As such, I am not asking this council for any money. There will be some minor funding needed for promotion, and it appears that it will be provided by some local commercial sponsors. I need this council to support this proposal initiative and help to promote it within our city, as was done with the fishing competition. Networking is most important, and therefore I'm asking each councillor and others to begin talking to their friends and family about this initiative. In the next few weeks, we will launch a media campaign that will appear primarily on the internet and with printed posters that we will be asking local business and institutions to post so as to publicize this to their constituents. One other need may be a challenge, but without it, the project's not going to happen. The funding awards will be announced on January 25th, 2013. As already stated, Aviva will expect the project to be executed to its completion by the end of that year. As such, I need to impress upon this council and staff the necessity to expedite the planning and execution of the project should it be successful in receiving full funding from Aviva. One question that I'm sure you might be asking yourself is, well, what if the project does not receive full funding or any funding? That's a great question and has a simple answer. Because the Aviva Community Fund prefers to be a full funding partner, the proposal will be contingent upon it being awarded the requested funding. If there is not sufficient funding offered, we will not obligate the taxpayers of the City of Port Colborne to provide the differential needed to proceed with the project. Ladies and gentlemen, this proposal will require a lot of creativity and unique methods of promotion. As such, if anyone would like to provide input or help to participate with the planning, I would be most happy to hear from them. The City of Port Colborne is a wonderful small city to live in and work in. It has suffered some negative economic impact over the past few years, and it is obvious that the local business community and the City of Council have partnered well in trying to improve the prosperity of its citizens. This proposal is yet one more way that the City of Port Colborne can support local business and its citizens. I therefore respectfully submit this report and ask the Port Colborne City Council support this initiative. Thank you. I would entertain questions at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Members of council, any questions or comments? Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not to Mark, but to city staff, where do we sit with this whole Market Square? Like, are we ready for a stage in there? I remember some presentations and stuff like that, but can I ask where we are with the project? Can this be done by the end of 2013?
Thank you, Councillor. And just to add to that, Dan, so we can hit two birds with one stone here. It's a great question. Is it in the CIP? Has there been discussions with the BIA? And with that, Councillor Bodner's question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Bonner. Council will recall last month we actually had a report respecting options for council to make application to FedDev's Community Infrastructure Investment Fund. Staff had actually recommended that the upgrade to Market Square be number one. There were two other projects, East Side CIP Trail and infrastructure streetscaping of the downtown. Council declined all of those recommendations and we went forward with storm sewer upgrades. That was the main application that council wanted us to support. So city's position staff-wise is that until we hear anything otherwise from council, there are no monies available to do anything regarding the CIP areas in the downtown. We have talked to the downtown BIA. We've made them aware of what the direction of council was. Unfortunately, Mr. Mayor, there are no monies available at the moment for the city to proceed with any of the streetscape or any component of the main or the downtown CIP.
Just a quick follow-up, Dan. So is the stage in the CIP?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that was part of the actual, it is within the CIP, and it
In Market
was,
Square?
yes, and it was something that we proposed to council back in August.
And the BIA has had we've had discussions with the BIA, and they're supportive of the stage being within King George Park of the Market Square?
Yes, they were supportive of the concept that was in the CIP.
Great, thank you, Dan. Councillor? That's fine. Councillor Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ron. Do we have the infrastructure in place? There's hydro and whatnot. I think the stage that Mark is proposing is not as large as the Canal Day stage, but something similar to maybe the band shell at H.H. Knoll Park, maybe on a little bigger scale than that. If we build this in the park, what do we need to upgrade in infrastructure? And I'm just throwing this out there. We've got power there already. Is there anything else that we would need to look at if we were to endorse this?
Mr. Hanson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The infrastructure, the FedDev application was for electrical upgrades to the downtown core and also the storm sewer, which is a major component on Clarence Street. There were estimates in the CIP for all the electrical upgrades. The stage itself wouldn't be a large component in terms of the major infrastructure that has to be done, but there would be an electrical component. A lot of the electrical work has been put in place in past years for Canal Days festivities, so it's not a major impact in terms of the stage construction itself.
Councillor?
Thank you. You know, I'm behind this 100%. When I first heard about this, and I heard it through Councillor Barrick, Regional Councillor Barrick, that you guys are going to go forward with this. To me, it's something that the BIA have been proposing for the last year. We'd actually paid for a detailed drawing of infrastructure improvements at the park. So when we heard about this, I think everybody at the BIA board was excited. One of the main components of the revitalization of the park was the stage. So if anything would be done in the park alone, I think the stage is by far the most important thing. It just lends itself to community events. Mark touched on it. You know, you can run a myriad of events downtown. None the least is the upcoming fall festival that the BIA is putting on. I mean, it just lends to that. It lends to, I think Mark recognized that it partners with the farmers markets on Fridays. There's so many things that you can tap into by having this stage. One of them being Fawn Hill has a stage in their downtown core that they run a concert every Friday night. The one stat I saw, they had 2,500 to 3,000 people at. It generates a buzz in your downtown and attracts people in. To me, the best thing that you said in the whole speech was, it's $0 from the city. This is 100% funded by Aviva. So, I mean, it's all or nothing, as Mark said. We don't have to contribute anything. If we don't get 100% funding, it's a no-go. So I'd support this 100%.
Thank you, Councillor. Before you take that seat, with your support, can we have some action attached to that in terms of a recommendation?
Yeah, I'd put forth a recommendation that we support the application by your committee, I guess. I know that they've probably got support. Gary Talasi's here from the BIA board. I think the BIA is in full support of this as well. I'd put forth a recommendation that council supports the application to Aviva for this funding.
Thank you, Councillor. Have a seconder to that, please. Councillor Steele. Further questions, comments? Councillor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a few questions. Before I could actually support this, I'd want to know, how would we make out with Canal Days? Would this stage support our usual Canal Days entertainment? And if it doesn't, then what do we do? That's one thing. The other thing is we do have a stage right now that is underused in H.H. Knoll 2 Park stages, yes. I don't know that we need another stage at this point, but if it's not costing the taxpayers of Port Colborne anything, I do understand wanting to run and get this, but will it cost the taxpayers of Port Colborne something? I believe it will. There's more to just to having a stage than just building it. It still there has to be upkeep. We'll have to make allowances for it. What about the look of the stage, the park that around the stage? That would have to change. I'm sure there would be things in there that would not be covered under the Aviva funding. Who would be responsible for putting all this entertainment on? How would this be used? I do agree in other communities it is working out well, but we already have these kinds of facilities. That's what I'm concerned about is, I mean, you can build it and sometimes they will come, but we've built a few and they don't always come. That's my concern. I'd want some answers to those. I think the Aviva Fund is a great thing, and there's lots of good things that can come to a community out of those. I just would like to see this one rethought. I just don't think this is the thing to do with the money.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kenny?
Thank you, Your Worship. I like the idea myself. I think it's a great idea, and thank you for bringing it forward. I have just now, I guess, a couple of concerns in regards to the stage and where it's located and its size. And I'd certainly like to know all that if we get the funding. I think Councillor Desmarais that Mark alluded in with his presentation that it's $50,000 for the stage, or what you're anticipating the stage cost would be, and the other $50,000 is for, I'm sure, the area surrounding it. But they're asking for this $100,000 in an attempt to cover all those costs instead of thinking about the cost that might follow that after, which does happen. So, and it always could be, you know, that the money left over could be used in a contingency fund, as far as I'm concerned, to provide maintenance later on. But I'd certainly want to know just a little bit more about where it's going to be located, how much room it's going to take up, which way you're facing obviously the Market Square. You know, I would like to at least put an application in and see what happens. I think that's a great idea. Thank you for your presentation. Thanks.
Is it possible for me to make a quick comment?
Sure, go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. Some of the questions you're asking are a little premature. Now, some of you will think that this thing was quite hastily arranged. Actually, I've been sort of working on this since about May. I think Angie and some others I talked to. But unfortunately, our committee was not able to really get together and make a final decision until last week. So just so that you know, it's not real new. But as far as some of the things like, you know, where's the stage going to be, where is it going to face, a little premature at this point. Where I'm basing my information at, for instance, the $50,000 for the stage, that came from the report that you saw apparently that the BIA presented to you in December. I studied that last week. There's a breakdown. It's basically, what, about $900,000 project. They costed out the approximate cost of the stage that they're talking about at around $50,000. So it might not be 50, it could be 45, it could be 55. Yes, I did add some things because, of course, planning is going to be involved. That report specifically said it did not include cost of planning. So we're going to have a planning department that is going to have some costs, et cetera, et cetera. At this time, I am only suggesting that we're going to submit $100,000. We can actually ask for up to $150,000. I would like to have the proposal in on September 24th, although I have till October 1st. So with a little more fine tuning and maybe a little more information from some of the staff, we may be able to get it fine tuned a little more. But it's still not too late for me in the proposal to Aviva to say, hey, I need $140,000. One final comment, you said if we were to get this money, if there's some left over, it could be put in contingency. Unfortunately, that's not the way it works with Aviva. With Aviva, what they do is if you ask for $130 and you get it, then they ask for detailed costing. If the job comes in at $127,000, they'll give you $127,000. The key to the Aviva Community Fund is they wish to be a full funding partner. They have once done a partial fund where it was contingent upon the project. They were getting funding from the federal government, and basically it was a match. But the executive director of Aviva specifically told me they really don't want to go there again. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. I have Councillor Doucette and then Councillor Steele.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I was part of the committee that looked at all the different options. And this seemed to be the one that would kickstart the downtown BIA. And yes, we have two stages, way on the one side of the town, whereas this will put it in the center of the city. That was what sold me on the whole project. Yes, it's underused, but it's way out there. This here in the center of town where Market Square is, it may be used a lot more. And it would be a way of kickstarting that whole CIP process. It will cost us nothing, and if we don't get it, it still doesn't cost us anything. And that's the whole idea behind this. Some of the other projects we looked at were also very interesting, but this is the one that won out when all three of us mainly the three of us got together. And if that's what the majority wants, then that's what we're going to push for. And I really believe that is a way of doing it. That is a way of starting the process. And yeah, there may be issues with Canal Days, but those are logistics that can be worked out. Right now, all we're looking for is for council to say, yes, go ahead with the project. The details can be worked out. And I believe when I spoke to Mark, what was it, when I got back from holidays? I think you indicated that the finalized project with all the details do not necessarily have to be in on September 24. The details have to be in, and enlighten me again, I believe it's in another 6 weeks or a couple of months.
No, actually, the details have to be submitted after we've been awarded the funding. The announcement will be made on January 25th, 2013, who the 30 communities are that are going to win money. If we are one of those winners, at that point, Aviva picks up the phone to us and says, okay, now we need to start talking about some detail. What is exactly what you want to do?
Okay. So essentially what we're looking for as a committee and what Mark is looking for is to say, yes, if you get it, we'll support it. That's what we're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Worship. Just through you to Dan. Dan, can you recirculate the diagrams and information on what we spoke with the BIA prior? We've all seen it, but just to remind us, so we all know exactly what options are in that park and where the proposed sites were for a stage. And then, as they've stated, this is kind of a phased-in project. We're not looking at doing the full thing here. So if we can get that, then at least we have an idea as council what they're actually talking about. Sure. Especially, I think it gave us sizes of stage and all that type of thing.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can definitely email you that electronically tomorrow and to actually see the illustrations and potentially where the stage is with respect to the parking area and skating rink that was proposed as part of it and a fountain area. So I will circulate that tomorrow to all members of council.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilina. Councillor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask that this be deferred to the next council meeting so that we've got a chance to take a good look at some of the plans that had already been seen for the Market Square, and so that we could maybe talk with Mr. Robinson and Councillor Doucette and Councillor Barrick a little bit more on this.
Okay, let me get back to that. Councillor Bodner.
I think that the deferral is a good idea. I'm still not convinced that we got solid numbers on that, how much it will cost to build that stage, and what else we may get into if we start doing that. I don't have a good comfort level to make that decision tonight, so I like Angie's idea of getting some more numbers, and staff may have some, yeah, if you do this, you got to do this. I'd like to know that before we just be careful what you wish for. You get some money, and then you got to spend a bunch more money to make it work. So.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Sinez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple points to think about also is exactly as Councillor Desmarais mentioned about Canal Days. My only concern would be the fact as to where the location of that stage would end up being, and when we do have Canal Days, is Canal Days going to be on that stage, or is it going to be the normal stage that we would bring in for the entertainment? And we may want to consult with our production company as to if it's going to be one stage there, and it's going to be used for community events plus Canal Days, maybe get a little bit of input from our production company manager there that handles the stage that we bring in for Canal Days as to, one, the cost, the types of amenities and power and all those types of things that would normally be required in order to have entertainment on that stage. So we may not have the entertainment that we would normally have during Canal Days.
Thank you. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to say that there's no way that this stage that we're even contemplating would be near big enough for Canal Days. It's completely out. But what I got a real problem with is we sit here and we've got gentlemen that are going out trying to get funding that's going to cost us zero. And all we come up with is why we can't do this. That's what I'm hearing. We can't do this because. We can't do this because. I don't hear anybody putting forth, this is how we can get it done. We're always negative. We're talking about ongoing maintenance costs. We're building a $33 million arena. That's going to be a heck of a lot more maintenance cost than a stage. And I don't think we've got a reserve fund set up for ongoing maintenance. I don't think we've got a reserve fund set up for $1 million skate park that we're building that's going to cost us in the ongoing. And yet, this is what we're talking about. What are we going to get into? We're talking about a stage that may be less than $100,000 that has the ability to attract people downtown. Yes, we're going to have to take a look at how can we site it so that Canal Day stage can be erected and it doesn't factor in and affect it. Canal Days is huge for us, but it's one weekend. We're talking about a stage that would sit in the downtown that could impact, 360 other days out of the year. We've got to start looking forward on what we can do to attract people to downtown. I think that's why Mark and his committee got together and identified this as the one factor. It's the wow factor. What would get people into downtown? What would be the best thing for us? They talked to the BIA. They know what the BIA identified. It could be the catalyst for the CIP. I think we ought to start looking at how we can get it done instead of the hindrances that would stop it. And I think we got to get on it now. These guys got to get going. To defer, we've talked about it before. There's plans that have been around for years. The BIA contracted out a company, consultants to get a detailed design that the BIA paid for. There's all of those plans available. I think, support it. If we don't get the money, we don't get the money. It doesn't cost us anything. But I think we got to move forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think what Councillor Elliott has said is pretty appropriate. If we support this project at this point and get accepted, we're always chasing our tail trying to find the money to do stuff. This is like, here's $100,000 that if we were successful, this committee's successful in this bid, solves that huge problem of where do we find the money to build these things. And if that's something that's going to kickstart and give our downtown area, a little breath of new life, a little bit of pizzazz, I see that as a good thing, not something to put all the stumbling blocks in the way of. We need to make a decision here of what do we want down there? What does the BIA want down there? Well, I think they made that pretty clear. So I'm prepared to support this.
Thank you. Councillor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify, the questions I'm asking are not because I'm absolutely opposed to the idea. The idea is fine. There's nothing wrong with the idea, except that there's not enough information for me to say, yes, I can support it, and I can say to the taxpayers that, yeah, you are now going to be on the hook to take care of it. With the other things that we've built, we've had full information in front of us when we sat down to make the decision. And that I'd be fine with. I just want more information so I can make an informed decision. This doesn't feel informed to me at all. It's just a very loose concept, and it's not enough for me. That's the whole idea. That's the reason I'm asking for a deferral. If we can go ahead and do it tonight, that's fine, but I wouldn't be able to support it without the information.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions or comments to the motion? We do have a motion on the floor. It's moved and seconded. Pardon me? No, we have the motion as it was written, or as it was received from the councillor, and seconded by Councillor Elliott, seconded by, I believe, Councillor Steele. That's the motion that I'm entertaining now. Unless councillors want to put another motion on the floor, that's the motion we'll put forward. So with that, no further questions or comments? Madam Clerk?
The motion is that City Council support the application for funding from Aviva.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And it's seconded by moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Steele. Any further questions or comments? With none, all those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you very much.
We have next the Regional Councillors Report. Councillor Barrick, welcome.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank Mark presenting before me. He did an excellent job, very comprehensive, and as well Gary Talassi for coming, showing our support as well. For what it's worth, I think Council made a good decision this evening for many of the reasons which have already been stated, so I won't go on there. For my Regional Councilors Report this evening, the region has released their quarterly financial update as of the end of June. So I'm just going to give sort of a snapshot of some of the things we were looking at, and we are looking at still for 2012, and a bit of a financial snapshot as well. Some of the major 2012 deliverables we've been working on, along with intermunicipal transit, as you well know, Mr. Mayor, the Responsive Region Improvement Team, and Niagara Week, are also. We've been transitioning our economic development function to a new model that leverages related collective efforts in Niagara, improves business retention expansion services, and provides one window service to potential new business to Niagara. We've developed a new performance measurement framework to track corporation efficiency and effectiveness in each of our departments. We've recently branded Niagara as the Green Energy Capital of Canada to recognize our leadership in the promotion and production of renewable and environmentally friendly energy. We have commenced and are continuing with a governance review to determine whether changes to the structure, composition, and functioning of Regional Council can improve decision-making toward an improved economy in Niagara. And finally, develop a new community improvement plan to encourage new development within the Gateway Economic Zone and Center. As of June 30th, 2012, Niagara Region is forecasting a year-end funding surplus of $7.3 million. This surplus represents about 1% of Niagara Region's 2012 operating budget. The surplus is being generated mainly from reduced winter control costs, higher investment income, and higher water volumes as a result of the dry summer. Affordability and sustainability are two key elements of Niagara Region's budget strategy, achieving a balance between providing the programs and services residents have come to rely upon, ensuring they can afford to pay for them, and ensuring that we have money to fund future infrastructure and program needs is critical. With that said, the region is always looking to hear from residents. We've got several community stakeholder sessions and resident sessions. Two of them are for tomorrow, Tuesday, September 11th, from 11 a.m. to 12:30 at Niagara Regional Headquarters. The other one is also tomorrow, September 11th, 7 to 8:30 p.m. at Niagara Regional Headquarters. And another one, which is Wednesday, September 12th, 7 to 8:30 p.m. at the Welland Sexual Health Center. And of course, people can always provide their thoughts on the region's website and or to individual councillors. I'd also like to add, Mr. Mayor, as part of my role on the Niagara Community Observatory, which is primarily a function through Brock University. They often come out with what they call policy briefs, and a recent one they've come out with, and I'll leave a copy for the minutes as well, is the What's Growing in Niagara, Farmers Markets in the Niagara Region. I think this is appropriate for Port Colborne as well. We have a very successful farmers market in town. The region has a long local agricultural history and grows rich, diverse selection of fruit, vegetables, and other produce. Farmers markets are important to Niagara not only because of the alternative to traditional supermarket system, but also because they offer a venue for community building through social interaction and are business incubators for small businesses. This particular brief highlights the impacts of farmers markets on Ontario, the types of customers who tend to shop and not shop at farmers markets, presents a profile of Niagara farmers, market vendors, and identify recent trends and challenges. The researchers conducted a total of 64 structured interviews, many of them with vendors and shoppers. So I won't go through the whole policy brief, but acknowledging that I will leave a copy here and that it's also available online at brocku.ca/Niagara Community Observatory. Finally, Mr. Mayor, an item that I've had an interest in, and although we've discussed it at Corporate Services Committee, it hasn't passed at Council yet, but it's regarding Niagara Region's corporate energy strategy. And it's a passion of mine that started at the city here through the Environmental Advisory Committee, taking some of those concepts and tools to the region as well. What the region has decided, at least at the committee level and ideally at Council this Thursday, is regarding our facilities, which includes water, wastewater plants, long-term care homes, public works, waste management, police, fleet vehicles, and social housing stock, is to utilize sustainable development principles, commit to reduce energy use and mitigate costs through conservation and efficiency, and commit to the use of renewable energy sources. The strategy proposes that the long-term vision for sustainable energy future is to reduce our dependence on non-renewable energy and transition to local renewable energy sources. The reality is, as discussed earlier in my opening remarks, we have declared ourselves the green energy capital of Canada. So it's time to not only talk the talk, but walk the walk. And I think we are doing that with this particular policy. So that's my report this evening, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Barrick. Members of Council, any questions or comments of the Regional Councillor? With none, once again, David, thank you. We'll now move on to Councillor's items, new business. Members of Council? Councillor Steele. Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Hanson, can you just give us a brief update on the Steele and Clarence intersection with regards to an ETA of finishing that project off?
Mr. Hanson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The signals, just a brief update, the signals are in place. Everything's functioning as designed. The only work remaining is the reinstatement of the trenches and the lands around the corners of the intersection. There's concrete work and some sodding work to do. That's all been scheduled. Concrete work won't be done until our CTC, our reinstatement contractor, comes back a little later this month. And the work for the trenches was scheduled to be done by Circle P, our patching contractor. I've instructed our staff to move ahead with that, try to get that done this week. As somebody that uses this intersection on a daily basis, I'm well aware of the problem with the settlement in the trenches, so we're going to try to get that done in the next few days.
Councillor? That's fine. Councillor Butters?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, the saga of the mailboxes continues, unfortunately. I did reach the gentleman in London who's a communications director, Mr. Cercelli. He sent me information. I did forward it to Mr. Hanson. I don't know if Mr. Hanson's, the road crews were out looking at any of the flags in any of the areas. Could I ask that question first?
Mr. Hanson?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Butters' question, we have reviewed the traffic safety assessment criteria that we got from the post office and all their brochures and that regarding this. We haven't done an assessment ourselves to the markers that are out there. I have taken a look at some of them. It's going to be difficult to tell without doing a more thorough investigation if there's going to be impact on our roads crews or not. We can certainly do that in probably the next few days.
Okay, well, I guess the bottom line is I was somewhat successful in getting some help for some people towards the Bethel area, and I was grateful to Mr. Cercelli for that. But it's not so much on the Lorraine Road area. So tonight, before I came to the meeting, I went by there again just to kind of remind myself of what it kind of looks like. And what it boils down to is there's two mailboxes near the Highway 3 end, and one is Mr. John Wayne Huffman's, the other one is the Phillips. And for that particular criteria, they're not 70 meters from the Highway 3 corner. They're about 42 and a half meters. So they're being required to move their mailboxes, which right now are at the ends of their laneways across from each other, under a streetlight, and they're being told that they need to move them further south on the Rain Road and right next to our pavement. So the very first good snowstorm, those mailboxes are done. If the snowplow misses them, it'll be nothing short of a miracle. The pavement is like here, the flag is right next to the pavement. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. When I talked to Mr. Cercelli, he explained how some of this criteria was to do with intersections and traffic patterns and busy roads and roads with hills and roads with curves. Well, there's not a curve on Lorraine Road. There's not a hill on Lorraine Road. Granted, they aren't 70 meters from that corner. But I'll tell you, if I sat on Lorraine Road for like the whole morning or the whole afternoon, I think I'd be hard pressed to see many cars, maybe except for the handful of residents who live on that road. It is not a high traffic area by any stretch of the imagination. So when Mrs. Phillips says to me, Barb, this is just plain stupid. And when John Wayne Huffman says, this is just plain stupid, you know what? It is just plain stupid, bottom line. So what I really would like our staff to do is to take a look at those two in particular. Plus there's another one on the other side of College Street East on the Rain Road, the very first house on the right-hand side, so it'll be on the west side of Lorraine Road, very first house. And that guy's mailbox post is well off the road, kind of almost to the side of the ditch, and has a long arm that comes out to the road. They're asking him to move that mailbox post out of that horizontally and put it right pavement and then right beside there. So actually move it this far. And his distance from Clawley Street doesn't look to be 70 meters to me. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's 70 meters. So there's kind of a lack of consistency here. That the expense for that homeowner to move that mailbox, I'm not getting it. I'm just not getting it. So if we could have our staff review where those flags are, especially where it comes to our services and operations, I'd really appreciate that. As well, Mr. Mayor, I think it's time for you to intervene, especially on behalf of Lorraine residents. I've talked to this gentleman. He is being helpful in the one area, but not so much in that situation. And you know what? There are constituents, and they're actually Canada Post customers, and they deserve better than this, in my opinion. So I would really appreciate that direction from this council for our staff, as well as your help, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butters. Is there any comment from staff on this? Mr. Henson?
Just, Mr. Mayor, we've read through the criteria, and it's based on traffic volumes, setbacks, as Councillor Butters has said, setbacks from intersections, and ways to make it safer. They say they've got over 800,000 rural mailboxes in Canada that are being reviewed under this criteria that was set by an independent committee and a traffic consultant. So they've reviewed all these locations from a safety aspect. They have to ensure, according to their literature, they have to ensure the safety, by legislation, the safety of the people that are working for them to deliver the rural mail. And that's the criteria for the placement of these individual mailboxes. I don't see a lot in here in terms of an appeal process for the homeowners. It's a directive. Once they do provide the homeowners with information in terms of why it's being moved in a particular location, but I don't see anything in here in terms of an appeal process. So I think once the directive is being sent to the homeowners, there doesn't seem to be any way out in terms of getting your deliveries. If the mailbox isn't in the new location, it appears that the mail will not be delivered after a fairly short period of time. So I'm not sure there's a lot, this being the federal government and Canada Post as big as it is, there doesn't seem to be a lot of movement for us in terms of how we found out about this, almost from the complaints of the residents as opposed to hearing from Canada Post and having some discussions. I didn't see that occur. I know Canada Post has contacted our building department in a couple instances with regards to community mailboxes in the rural areas. And this is another initiative that's going forward, so that certain areas will have a community mailbox as opposed to a mailbox directly in front of your property. And that'll be another, I think, sore spot with a lot of the rural residents will now have to sort of go out and trudge to wherever the community mailbox is located. So we can certainly review these locations. I understand there's over 100 that are required to be moved just in Port Colborne. So I'm not sure the direction of council, other than we'd be happy to take a look at these ones on Lorraine Road and the Clowley Street area. If there's any other direction from council, again, I don't know that there's a lot of room here in terms of the municipality being able to appeal this on behalf of the homeowners.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. A few questions I have with respect to, I'm sorry, Councillor Bonner, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, in speaking with Councillor Butters, it appears that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor, that this gentleman has not been out to physically look at the ones on Lorraine Road, but he has looked at some of the other ones in the Bethel area? Oh, he's going to. Okay. Mr. Mayor, I wonder whether you could request that while he's here, he looks at the ones on Lorraine Road. You know, a rubber stamp is fine. I get all the safety. We do it as a city. We do that. You know, we have certain things we have to do to protect our staff. I get that whole thing, but sometimes the rubber stamp, when you actually physically stand there and look at a situation, doesn't make sense. So if we could request that that gentleman actually looks there, maybe I'd prefer if Councillor Butters was there or myself, along with the residents at the same time. Residents are pretty upset, and you know, but I think that they would be reasonable if the gentleman was there and you know, actually would look at it and observe the whole area, because quite frankly, sometimes you could put the residents at risk by moving that mailbox and forcing them to either walk in the wintertime to, you know, down a street that just has snowbanks on it, forcing them out on the, you know, to go to check their mail. So there may be some give and take here. And Mr. Mayor, if you could get involved, at least request that he takes a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Hanson, just a question. Obviously, these mailboxes would be on city property. And with that, I'm making that assumption, so I'll pose it as a question. But, and if so, is it within the road allowance?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, all of the mailboxes are within the road allowance.
Okay, so with that said, is there any concerns, and I think this is where Councillor Butters is going, is there any concerns that we would otherwise have? And I know they're looking out for their employees, but, you know, for our employees and our residents, quite frankly, especially those that we're trying to, that may be trying to get out to one of our recreation trails that are on the side of a road and now being even closer to a mailbox. Are there any safety concerns, which is my second question. And my third question is in terms of damages. Any damages that may occur, whether it's by our plow or by a car, or even by any means, who would be actually exposing themselves to that liability of covering those damages?
Well, Mr. Mayor, we're generally responsible for damage to the mailboxes. If our contractor, our own forces hit the mailboxes and they're in the location as they normally would be, then we're responsible for replacement. We have a give and go in terms of the residents out there. If we feel a mailbox has been hit in an inadvertent number of times, we will work with the homeowner to try to relocate it, move it back, or do what we have to do so we don't have to keep replacing them. So that's a bit of a give and go. The mailboxes are located on the road allowances, obviously, and one of the criteria here is for us is the shoulder width and of the roads themselves. We've been requesting in the past year to improve the shoulders in locations where these mailboxes are, which is kind of a concern for us. The post office is saying that it's a safety concern for their deliverers, and yet It's actually the mail vehicle in many instances that is rutting out the shoulder and us having to do extra work in terms of the shoulder reinstatements and so on at all these locations. And we're getting a lot of these requests directly because the homeowners are getting letters from Canada Post saying either fix the area around your existing mailbox or you're not getting deliveries anymore. So we have this problem ongoing all the time. Obviously, if the mailboxes are too close to the road, it's a safety concern because we have to plow the roads and we have to get the snow off the edge of the roads and off the shoulders. So it could be a problem if, in fact, they're moving a number of these close to the pavement itself because of a lack of shouldering on the roads. So
Okay.
it's a concern.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. So, you know, in terms of being credible in our response through my office to the individual or individuals, let's get that address, let's get those names, let's get a lot of our concerns on paper, get it down there. With respect to, you know, it is within the city's road allowance. With that, there are concerns with respect to safety, not only in terms of plowing, but in terms of people traveling that road, both by vehicle and or other means, such as bicycle. And of course, the damages that would occur because of the closeness to our roads, you know, exposing the city to those liabilities in terms of being financial, and outlining all those within that correspondence. So let's get to that, as well as finally, as per Councillor Bodner's desire or recommendation, to also look at Lorraine Road being looked at directly versus just simply being a rubber stamp on somebody's, or out of a map of somebody's book that they may have on the shelf. So if we can get that out right away, I'm sure they're going to be under tight timelines. We'll get that out by midweek or at the very latest end of the week. Already? That's fine. Councillor Bodner? Councillor Butters, that's fine?
Very much.
Great. Councillor Demery, you had a question to that? Okay, any further questions to that? Okay, Councillor Demery, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ron Hansen. Ron, I just have a couple of questions. First would be Lewis and Welland Street. If you're making a right-hand turn off of Lewis onto Welland, so there's a catch basin immediately north of Lewis on the east side of Welland Street there that is extremely low, and cars actually bottom out when they come down on it. You have done some work to it in the past, but it needs some more attention. That's a bit of a problem. And I actually saw somebody fall off a bicycle hitting it. That's why I'm bringing it forward. So that needs attention. The other one is the East Village Park and the berm removal. Summer's over. The park is no longer needed for day programs. The East Village Action Committee would love to move forward with the berm removal, but we're looking for the place to put the soil, and I'm just wondering if anybody has any information on where we're at with that.
Well, I can speak to the second part of that. I attempted to contact INCO and spoke with one of their individuals who has decided not to call me back. So explained to him that we have received some complaints with respect to some INCO property that's ponding throughout the summer. Those complaints revolved around the obvious with respect to mosquitoes and it being a mosquito haven because it's ponding. West Nile virus has come up as a concern, as well as just simply improving the INCO property that's becoming a derelict property, one of their derelict properties in that part of the city. And unfortunately, a lot of the properties are becoming daily more derelict as we speak. So trying to contact them, work with them to improve that property, improve the situation of that property, and as well look at taking some soil that would otherwise be put somewhere else on the property to help them out. I explained that to the individual I spoke with when I called him after many attempts to get a hold of him. Finally got a hold of him, and he told me he would get back to me, and hasn't yet. Called again, left a voicemail, hasn't got back to me. Called again, left a voicemail, hasn't got back to me. So it seems that Valet is up to their old tricks again and not being as cooperative as they very well should be. So with that said, Ron and I just talked about that just a couple weeks ago. And what we're looking at doing is now, hey, when you deserve a smack in the back of the head, you're going to get it. And they deserve it. So they're getting it. Ron and I just spoke about that a couple weeks ago. And actually we're looking at bringing the materials somewhere else and hopefully expediting that work before the snow flies. Mr. Hanson?
Mr. Mayor, we have one other suggestion that's recently come up on a property that the CO has to be working on where there's a need for some fill material. We haven't talked to the contractor yet, but there is a need for some fill material on our newly acquired property on Third Concession. So if that's suitable to the contractor to take it over there, that may be an option as well. So we're throwing that idea out, and we'll be contacting them with that proposed site, see if it's suitable for their uses.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Councillor?
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. I'll let everyone know at our next DVAC meeting, which is next week, and I'm sure that you'll be hearing from us. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Further new business. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm standing as a member of the Chamber of Commerce Board. I can ask for leave of council. We're having a, should I say it? Yeah, I don't think it's a secret. We're having a retirement party next Wednesday on the 19th of September. Edith Wagner, longtime office manager for the Chamber of Commerce, is retiring. Don't put that in the paper because I don't know if she knows.
Does she knows about the party, or she's retiring? What are you guys doing to Edith?
Yeah, she doesn't know she's retiring. She is. We've even got a replacement for her. No. Yeah, no. And Edith will find that in good fun. We would like to have it at Humberstone Hall, which is the home of the Chamber of Commerce. It's just a drop-in affair from 4 to 6 next Wednesday. We do have a license that has been applied for, and we have approached our insurance carrier, and we do have the $5 million with the city named as a third party. So I'd ask for leave of council to approve that the chamber can hold this function.
Thank you. If I can have leave, first of all, please. Councillor Desmarais, Councillor Steele. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. To accept that recommendation, do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Kenny, are there any questions or comments? Staff, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That'll be carried. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. So that is from 4 to 6 next Thursday at Humberstone Hall. Wednesday, September the 19th. Yeah, that's the 19th. And it says it right here, so I can't even read tonight. The second thing, we got an email, I don't know if everybody else got it, from the Ontario Clean Water Agency, which will send out a reminder on the Municipal Infrastructure Investment Initiative funding for asset management. And I just wondered, have we put in an application for some of that funding? There's $60 million available, and I just wondered if we had an application going in.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Sinez?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we are going to be putting an application in. It has to be in by, I can't remember the date now. But we are working on it, and we'll be putting in through something for the asset management. So we have that in the plan in place, because it is something that that's the next step to all the PSAB information and the inventory of all of our assets, is then to establish the asset management plan in order to receive future funding from the province if there's any grant programs or things coming up. So it is something that we've seen and we will be applying for.
Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that just leads into one thing. The capital asset management plan at AMO that I attended a couple of weeks ago, a couple of things were high on priority that got mentioned quite a bit was the asset management planning, and also to do a study on energy reduction and to put a plan in place to reduce your energy consumption. I just wondered if we have done a study, or if we have planned to do a study on energy reduction, and I guess partnering with what Councillor Barrick had said, do we have any plans in place to look at renewable energy sources to run any of our facilities? We've got the new Works or Operations Center going to come online. Is there anything in those plans for renewable energy via solar, wind, or anything like that to help us reduce our consumption? And like Councillor Barrick said, we're the green energy capital of Canada, and I just wondered, is there anything in the city right now that we have as a green energy, in as much as solar or wind? I know that the FIT program is now Fit 2, I guess, is what you call it. Have we made any applications for any FIT program applications? Do we have any solar or wind that power any of our facilities right
Mr.
now
Hanson.
that help us reduce consumption?
Through Mr. Mayor, not at the present time. We certainly looked at the feasibility of solar panels with the new health and wellness facility. It was deemed at the time not to be cost-effective or feasible. It's not being built into it. The Port Colborne Operations Center hasn't been designed yet. We're starting that process right now, and it's certainly something that could be considered there if it looks to be feasible. One thing we did do with the health and wellness facility, even though it's not renewable energy, we are going to be LEED Silver certified, which every component of that facility, as you build it, the wood, the materials, everything that goes on there, goes through the LEED process in terms of how things have to be done and how they're certified. So it certainly is a green facility in that sense. But none of the existing facilities that I'm aware of have been retrofitted in any sense to be renewable.
Okay. Members of council, any further new business? Councillor Danch.
I guess through you to Peter there, I had a little quick chit chat with him earlier, but you go down to the public launch and we've had issues with our grass and everything else, but there's got to be about 300 cigarette butts sitting underneath that little canopy down there. And of course, when you have a roof over anything, you're not supposed to be smoking there. And I know it's a great place to go and watch the boats and stuff, but I don't know, maybe a broom, possibly a pail with some sand in it, but the cigarette butts down there are just unbelievable, and a little bit of garbage scattered around. Maybe you could have one of the marina guys give a little push broom there and clean her up a bit, please.
Thank you, Councillor. That's fine. Further new business, councillors? Members of staff, any updates? Mr. Hanson?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I haven't prepared a report for this, but at the last meeting of council, we got the go-ahead in terms of hiring a project manager for the new operations center. And we had our kickoff meeting with our new project managers, Prism Partners, to move the project ahead and go ahead and get an RFP ready to hire our design team and so on. We've suggested organizing a technical advisory committee for the design and construction of the facility. And in doing that, we'll have our partners, Prism Partners in as a project manager, myself, the superintendent, our engineering manager, and also a member of our public works staff sitting through the design review process. My suggestion is that we have a member of council, if council sees fit, to also sit on this committee to assist with the design and keep council apprised of as the project moves forward over the next couple of years. So what I'd like to do, Mr. Mayor, is ask council if they'd be interested in having someone sit on the technical advisory committee for the Port Colborne Operations Center. I have to advise that these probably won't be night meetings. They'd be meetings during the day. Our first meeting is scheduled for, project meeting is scheduled for September the 19th, which is, I believe, a Wednesday in the morning. So I'll just throw that out there, and if anybody from council would be interested in sitting it, we'd be welcoming to them on the, for their advice on the committee.
Members of council, I think it's a great idea. Now, I'll be sitting on that myself, but I think a member of council as well would be advantageous, because I won't be able to make every meeting. But who's interested?
I'll move it.
Move what?
Frank Danch.
Councillor Danch? Okay, if I can ask for leave first? Councillor Steele, Councillor Butters, questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. In terms of a councillor, we move that Councillor Steele, Councillor Danch would be that member. Seconded by Councillor Elliott. Councillor Danch, do you accept?
What choice have I got? Yeah.
Hey, your hand was up, buddy.
My only concern was, and I am interested, because but it's just a day meeting. Sometimes make it tough, and like you said yourself, you can't make everyone, and I'll try to do what I can. But yeah, maybe we can offset or something like that. Thank you.
Fine. Thank you, Councillor Danch. Questions or comments? That's good. No questions. All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you, and thank you, Frank. Thank you, Councillor, or thank you, Mr. Hanson. Councillor Butters.
Can I just ask one more question that just came across? Doesn't matter, from Magic World. Anyway, can I just ask through you to Mr. Hanson, did this study from AMEC come back regarding the drains. Do you know if we got that back?
Mr.
They
Hanson?
were doing the water quality stuff for us.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, I haven't seen that study yet. So
Hasn't
I'll-
come in yet?
I will check tomorrow and I'll update you on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Butters. With no further new business and no further updates from staff, Mr. Howe, you're good?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. We'll now move on to the items requiring separate discussion. First off, we'll adopt the minutes of the 20th meeting regular of Committee of the Whole, August 27, 2012. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Kenny, Councillor Doucette, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. We'll start off with item number 1. Yeah, I guess, yeah, good idea. So we have, let's go to 8 and 9, Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Worship. I'll move that Councillor Kenny be recommended for appointment to the District of, the District School Board of Niagara Accommodation Review Committee.
Good. Do we have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Desmarais, questions or comments? That's fine, Councillor Kenny? Be careful what you wish for. All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, Councillor Kenny. We'll now move on to item 9. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne does not object to the request received from Thomas Sahaki for the Gravelly Bay benefit to be held on Saturday, September 22nd, 2012 at the Port Colborne Beach House, 208 Lakeshore Road West, Port Colborne, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., subject to compliance with the following conditions. That whereas depending on the size of the tents the tents may require a building permit. Therefore, the applicant is required to contact the Building and Bylaw Enforcement Division to obtain any permits that may be required, including permits for tents, banners, and signs. The tents must meet the flame spread rating contained in the Ontario Building Code. That cooking or open flame is not permitted under any tent. That the tent or tents are to be posted as no smoking. That portable fire extinguishers are required to be provided for the tent or tents and the cooking equipment. That whereas the Niagara Regional Police Service and Fire and Emergency Services Department have expressed concerns in relation to vehicular traffic and public safety, that the request to utilize a drive-in service be declined. That the applicant ensure the event is carried out in a manner that complies with all traffic and parking regulations. That the request for banners, flyers, tents, and ice be declined as the Community Services Division does not have resources budgeted for advertising costs for events of this nature. That the applicant comply with all health regulations and obtain any necessary approval from the Niagara Regional Health Department for serving the food. That the City of Port Colborne provide support by posting the event on the community bulletin board featured on the City of Port Colborne website.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Elliott. Before I go to questions or comments, I think Mr. Suhaki wants to speak. And if I may ask for leave of council to allow that. Councillor Steele, Councillor Elliott, questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Mr. Suhaki, welcome. So I just want to press the gray button there and you're all ready to go.
Thank you, Mayor Badaway and City Council. My name's Tom Suhaki. I'm from Buffalo, New York. I own the beach house at the corner of Lakeshore Road West and Oak Ridge Crescent. My family's owned that property since 1961. For 49 years, I've walked that shoreline or played in the sand. I used to swim in the water in front of it, but it's become worse. And I'd like to help do something about it. It seems like in order to do anything, it requires money. So I thought of a fundraiser to generate some money. I know I have immediate community support because I've knocked on hundreds of doors in the neighborhood. And everyone's given me encouragement and support. So I thought of fundraisers. I have a couple ideas, and the first one that came to mind was this hot dog day for the neighborhood to get involved in and wherever it may go beyond that. But it's simply like a value meal of a hot dog, a can of pop, and a bag of chips for $5. We can make some money at it. I've done some of the number crunching. And we could walk away with some money as a successful event. I initially had this really big idea. The tents came up, but if tents are a concern, then I won't have to have a tent. We have a big yard, we have a big house, and other things like drive-in, purchasing meals and serving through a drive-in type of scenario, we just don't have to do. I've really simplified it with eliminating tents, having it basically a walk-in type of event, and serving a great quality meal where people could either sit there and enjoy their meal right there at the waterfront, or we have like food safe containers and bags where people can walk away and take their meal to their home. That's it. It's a start. It's trying to keep it simple, and I'm willing to answer any questions that anybody has.
Great, thank you, Mr. Suwaki. And just to give some, or shed some more background on this, Council will recall the process that we partnered with last year with the Lorraine Bay Group. In budget, we put forward an amount of money, they put forward an amount of money, and we proceeded with a process that hopefully will, in the outcome, start working toward the improvement of our North Shore. With that, we have also had dialogue throughout the past year with Cedar Bay and Gravelly Bay, also going through the same challenges, both inland as well as on the water. So what I did was I began a mayor's task force. We've called it the North Shore Task Force, and we're combining the efforts of Lorraine Bay, Cedar Bay, and now Gravelly Bay, toward putting forward a process similar to what we started with Lorraine Bay in 2011. But quite frankly, the Lorraine Bay process goes back, Ron, Barb, back to almost 2004, 2003. Almost 12 years now, if not even further than that. So essentially, you know, why have three silos when we can have one group working together for the same cause? So therefore, I felt it necessary to bring all three groups together, Lorraine, Cedar, and Gravelly Bays, and for the same outcomes. So with that, I know Tom and I talked about this early on. I had a few visits at your home or your cottage, and I also talked to some of the residents and some of his neighbors, and it's become apparent that they want to be a part of that same process, but as well, as Tom alluded to, it takes dollars. And to not depend on the taxpayers, I give you credit, as well as I gave credit to the Lorraine Bay Group, to come forward with some leverage dollars to at the very least, begin that process, especially now that the province has brought forward the Great Lakes Protection Act. So again, with that all said, I think this is a good start for Gravelly Bay, as it was with Lorraine Bay and Cedar Bay, to begin that process. Just to digress for a second, members of council, this with the help of Barb, with Councillor Butters and Councillor Bodner, as well as some of the councillors in Ward 1, Elliott and Steele, this is really catching a head of steam with respect to this task force. They're very much involved in making applications to the provincial government for funding, to do testing, to do some of the science, and ultimately to try to come up with some solutions with respect to our North Shore. I think anybody that drives along the North Shore and the hot weather that we've had over the past 2 months will recognize we've got some challenges down there. So with that, as Tom alluded to, we want to be part of the solution and do something about it. This is a good start to raise some of those funds, and hopefully at the end of the day, we'll further the efforts that we're looking at being a part of. So a bit of background, but I support what Mr. Suwaki is doing, what the neighborhood is doing, and hopefully council will give that support as well. So with that, members of council, are there any questions or comments? Madam Clerk, you had a comment first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to bring to council's attention that today the city's fire prevention officer provided some further comments, and I believe council may want to consider it as an amendment to the recommendation before you. The recommendation that he put forward is that the applicant supply a site plan for approval by the Fire and Emergency Services Department as well as the Niagara Regional Police, which is to include information with regard to dealing with tents, cooking areas, and potential traffic issues. In addition, I also wanted to bring to council's attention that Mr. Suwaki provided a handout today with regard to a couple of additional items that are not included in the recommendation before you. It's on the first page of his presentation, which was distributed just before the council meeting. Specifically, he's looking for permission to accommodate parking along Bayview Lane, as well as for the provision of a crossing guard. He's looking for permission for banners and signs to be posted in the neighborhood announcing the event, as well as assistance in duplicating the flyers for the event. He's looking for 600 copies of the flyer. And finally, he's looking for some correspondence from the city on city letterhead looking for support for nonprofit purchase of hot dogs.
Great, thank you, Madam Clerk. Members of council, questions or comments? I have Councillor Bodnar, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Kenny, Councillor Butters. Councillor Bodnar.
Am I to assume that this is going to be part of the recommendation, that request, or how is?
That would be up to council. We have the original recommendation. The clerk has asked that you at least, at the very least, amend the recommendation as per the comments from the fire department.
Yes.
So I would ask that if the mover and seconder would agree to that would be an amendment. That's fine. So we'll consider that friendly versus voting on it.
All right.
But I would require a motion to add the rest of it as part of the motion, and I'll have that voted on separately. Okay?
Okay. I'm not prepared to add the rest of it.
Okay.
I'll do the fire department part.
Okay, that's fine. I have Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Are we going to include, I guess, number one on the supplementary page, as part of, it says, parking on Bayview be referred to the Fire and Emergency Services Department and Regional Police Service for review? Would that be considered as part of?
That's right.
With the above one, too, that the applicant supply a site plan for approval by the Fire and Emergency Services? Can we put those together? I mean, it's all within the fire department, their realm.
Well, what I would prefer, councillors, is that first of all, you make a decision on whether you want to allow the Bayview Lane parking.
Okay.
And then with that said, the caveat to that would be then to request that be referred to Fire and Emergency Services.
Sure. Okay. Just a couple of quick comments. I did receive a phone call tonight from a resident, from a couple of residents that just became aware of the event today, and that's why they called. They have some grave concerns over parking on the street because obviously Oak Ridge is such a small, narrow street. They weren't really in favor of the traffic and the parking on Oak Ridge. It's obviously very, very narrow. You're fully aware of that. So I just wanted to bring that to light. I guess the concern was that they just found out about the event tonight, and I got a call at 6 o'clock just before coming here from somebody that lives down the street and didn't know, and saw it on the agenda because they were alerted by one of their other neighbors that said, hey, this is going to council tonight, did you know about it? And they said no. So there are people that do have concerns in the neighborhood. Second of all, as the mayor had said before, there is a Gravelly Bay Association, I guess if you want to use that loosely, that met with you to apply for the Great Lakes Initiative funding. Are you partnering with them? Is this a fundraiser to partner with what they're asking for, or are you working by yourself to fundraise to do something else? I'd kind of like to see the group as a whole work together, but it doesn't say what the money is going to be dedicated for.
It would be in partnership with the Great Lakes effort and the direction that the city provides. I'm not really sure where it would all go towards, but I'm sure you guys can help me find out, where it could be directed, and if it's added to the Great Lakes funding, we have more money to work with and a chance to resolve the issues a little bit better. I don't plan on running with it myself.
I think for the most part, we had a meeting a few weeks ago whereby we outlined a lot of the work that's been done by the Lorraine Bay Group in partnership with the city and with the consultants. I believe it's AMEC, Ron, they're working with AMEC with respect to some of the testing and some of the outcomes that are coming out from the testing, as well as some of the different ideas that we have for some of the phosphorus and nutrient that's coming out of the drains. In particular, in the Ward 1 area would be pertinent to the Eagle Marsh drain, but in Ward 4, it's the Wagnall, it's the Bears, it's the Michael, and so on and so forth. But that takes money. It takes money to hire that consultant to do a lot of that investigative work, and then ultimately to come up with some solutions with respect to what the outcomes have become with respect to what's growing in our lakes and what's ending up on our shorelines. Ultimately, when we spoke at that meeting, and the members that were representing, at least I assume they were representing the Gravelly Bay Group, Ms. Clark, Ms. Butt, those members were in attendance, and we were very clear with respect to the direction we were going to be taking. And with that, the money it was going to take that direction, and with that, some of the opportunities to really raise some of that money. Councillor Butters?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. When that group meeting happened, you have to realize that the data that has been collected over 10-plus years from the Lorraine Bay Group, that has to now happen for Gravelly Bay. Data has to be collected from, say, the Eagle Marsh, and some of that may be available through the MPCA, but we know from past experience that, you know, a lot more data needs to be specifically from certain areas, and that's what takes the money, and that's what Tom is trying to do, is to put some money together, have a fundraiser to actually do what Lorraine Bay people did, was they ponied up money to help do those kinds of things as well. They did all that testing and paid for all that testing over those years themselves. Gravelly Bay folks are now trying to, they know they need to step up now and are willing to, like, talk about a grassroots effort here. Like, this is just, it just blows my mind. I think we need to do everything that we can do to support this group in their efforts, because this goes directly to improving the health of our lake. That's what this is all about. This is about improving, you know, our little piece of Lake Erie shoreline. And I have no, you know, I know, like, there's huge issues out there, but if we don't tackle them one at a time, we're never going to get anywhere. So I hope that we can support as much of this as we possibly can, that makes sense to, that we can do, you know, responsibly. This group is a wonderful grassroots enterprise here.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kenny?
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, to the presenter, thank you for taking the initiative. You know, I totally agree. We have to take some steps to improve our lakefront, and definitely this area, this bay, is one that needs work. So thank you for taking the effort. The only thing I have a question through you to our CAO, Your Worship, to our CAO. He's asking, Tom is asking for letterhead to be used to, I guess, to seek assistance in the purchase of hot dogs, and so that he goes on as a nonprofit. This way, when he presents this letter to the store or wherever he's purchasing these, he can get obviously a discount. So I'm just asking, when we put that on our letterhead, I have a little bit of concern, because I did notice, Tom, and I understand you're from the States, and you know what, I love those hot dogs too. They're one of my favorites. But I just wonder why you're doing all your purchases in the States instead of locally, because it is a local issue, and how that company would be. So that's a question. But first of all, to the CAO, what does that put us through if we have a letter, put it on our letterhead asking for assistance?
Mr. Howe?
Through your worship, I would suggest that you exercise caution. The problem with doing that then purports to the recipient of the letter that it is a municipal function, and it's not. It is a private function. The use of the city's exemption status is a guarded one, which can't be used for events unless they are very clearly for absolute charitable events, and this isn't. While its result may be charitable in the end, but until it gets to something which by law, and the laws in Canada in respect of charitable events is very, very strict, even the issue receipts. So I would suggest that you, although there may be ways that we could try to support the effort using the city's stationery and trying to promote it as a nonprofit city event, would be a stretch of the legislation, and I would suggest it may not be. Let's just say it's better to err on the side of caution in this respect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. Councillor?
And just one question in regards to the residents on Bayview. Have you talked to those about the residents there along Bayview to tell them that you're holding this event and that parking may be needed on their street? Because it's a pretty narrow street too, so I guess I was concerned about that.
Mr. Sawicki?
There's been a lot of changes since the idea started. I have no interest in parking down Oak Ridge Crescent. And when I saw that, having parking down Oak Ridge Crescent, and when I saw that as a possible spot, it didn't interest me. I know that the streets are narrow. And Lakeshore Road West has some parking, but not around the corner right by our house. There's kind of a blind spot and could potentially be dangerous. So then I'm thinking, what else is there? Well, Bayview is actually a wide side street. I mean, probably 3 cars wide. And people who have picnics or family reunions right in that area, a lot of them seem to park right along Bayview. There's a good stretch on the right-hand side, even that circle at the end of it, and even on the opposite side, offers some parking relief, and it's a quick idea, quick parking solution. But no, I haven't asked anybody, because I didn't want to share this idea yet until I got city approval, or city council approval, and their blessing. I'm open to some suggestions, as well as ways to buy cheap hot dogs. Good hot dogs, too. You know, so this is where I'm at right now. So this is a great start, and I'm looking for input and some direction from you guys. I got the idea. I got one of several ideas, actually, but this is the first, so help me.
Thank you.
It's a great idea, and just one more, Your Worship, and that's in regards to the flyer. I would just ask that that you take the credit, your family, because I think it's great that you're doing that, and that the city of Port Colborne as well, they may be supporting it, but we should not be put down as hosting this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Your Worship. Along with Councillor Elliott, I did have a few calls today, not a lot, because I don't think it's out there. I really don't, because in fact, the one person that sits on your Gravelly Bay Committee is one of the ones that called me that didn't have any clue what was going on, but that's fine. I do have concerns about parking, though, whether it be on Bayview, because A, you haven't spoken to the residents, which I think is a big issue, but B, if you look at most garage sales around, people don't care, they just park anywhere. And that area is terrible, and you've already indicated that it is, that whole corner, and people will pull up, they don't care, they'll park, and all of a sudden they're parking on the Bend or they're parking on Oak Ridge. I don't know how you're going to stop people from parking to run into to support this. I would suggest that maybe you call the yacht club down the street, who has all the amenities, parking either in behind or out front. If it's not a weekend that's already booked, that they could partner with you on this, where they could allow you to use the facility for free or for very little cost, and that I think you'll have a lot better success where people can come in and go as they come and also cross the street, whether the gentleman there allow you to park, but I think people park there because he's not around here. But there's lots of parking there. To me, that's a better location. I think the whole idea is good. The cause is good, because we've been doing this on an ongoing basis for many years in the community of Port Colborne to try to make the lake cleaner for a better shoreline. I think the causes of things that happen at Lorraine are certainly very different than the bay. Growing up on the lake, I think the bay is shallower, doesn't flow through like it used to on the entire bay, so that's why you're getting more seaweed than a lot of places. So, but the issue of things growing faster because of what's getting into the water is a huge concern. But I would suggest that maybe you contact the yacht club. Certainly they're part of the water people out there as far as boating and swimming and using beaches. I think they should be on board with this whole issue. They like to see the whole bay better utilized. You know, they don't even put boats in there anymore because you can't get out the end of the gravelly or of the Eagle Marsh because it's filling in with sand. Unfortunately, that's not our property that we can clean. We've discussed that here before. Again, I think it's good. I don't think the location is good. I just think it can get, if it's successful like you want, it can get pretty chaotic. And people don't want to walk very far. They want to park close, get their lunch, and leave, or get in. They don't want to me, if they're not going to park at the end of Bayview Lane and walk all the way up. Some will, most won't. I think they're going to try to park as close as possible, and that's the issue on that whole stretch of both Oak Ridge and the Lakeshore at that corner. So I'd like to see, at least contact the yacht club just to see if they're interested in helping with this issue.
Thank you, Councillor. By the way, I think it's a great idea. Further questions or comments, members? Just quickly, and I want to take this opportunity, and again, it might be a bit of digression, but I wanted to take this opportunity to let Council know some of the things that we're actually working on right now with Lorraine, Cedar Bay, and Gravelly Bay. Barb alluded to a few things, working with Henry Benamir here at the city. He has been kind enough to work directly with the residents. We are working with the Conservation Authority to gather up some water quality data to be the base information to the process. We are working with the MPCA also within the North Shore Watershed Report. We're working with Public Health with respect to the regional study on the beaches. The ongoing study with sources of contamination is being looked at as well with respect to the 3 different areas and with those identified within the North Shore Watershed Report. We are working with the Region Planning Office as well as the Great Lake Mayors Association with respect to trying not to reinvent the wheel, because a lot of these things are happening in other jurisdictions throughout all the lakes. So I'm really working closely with my colleagues from both sides of the border. Some of the things that we're looking at with respect to the provincial application that we're going to make under the Great Lakes Protection Act, the monies that are being made available since legislation was passed in June, is the creation of buffers, wetland enhancement, and the creation of those wetlands to try and eliminate the phosphorus and nutrients from entering into the lake, some of which comes right from our urban area, from our stormwater. You know, some of the salt and the different chemicals that end up on our roads, sometimes through the agricultural lands, and I'll use the words other activities out in the rural areas, are finding their way through our drains and through our ditches and ending up in the water course. I think a map of the Lorraine Bay showing the actual plume of phosphorus coming out of the drain was a perfect example of some of the contaminants that are entering into our Great Lakes. And of course, the creation of natural channels to help, I'll use the word filter some of those phosphorus and nutrients that are coming out of their drains, as well as other creative wetland opportunities that we're starting to recognize. We are looking at bringing on representation from the Township of Wainfleet, because of course they impact this area as well as I said earlier, the MPCA. We are forwarding reports to the Gravelly Bay team, reports that were already made available by the Lorraine Bay Group, and of course some of the work that we're accruing through AMEC. And right now our planned next steps are to create a more cohesive, a more integrated approach between the 3 different areas, to enter into the application process with respect to the Great Lakes Protection Act, the application for funding, to augment the funding that's already being put forward by both the city and the folks in these different areas, and to continually meet together, although as 3 groups, as one group, with respect to the Mayor's Task Force on the North Shore, and as well make continued submissions to the province with respect to not only asking for funding, but also to pass on to them some of the solutions that we're putting forward, not only through the Great Lakes Mayors Association, so other jurisdictions can use some of the solutions that we come forward with, but also to the province, the Minister of Environment, Minister Bradley himself, to further implement within the Great Lakes Protection Act. So it's something that, you know, we don't always see make front page of the newspaper, but albeit still extremely, extremely important with respect to the outcomes that we're hoping to recognize. So with that, Tom, to you and you folks, not only to yourself, but to the entire area there. I know Mrs. Butt was involved, Ms. Clark was involved, and many others came out with interest to the whole process. So to all of you dealing with this macro issue, I congratulate you. I think Councillor Steele comes up with a great point with respect to looking at the possibility of possibly bringing the event to another partner, obviously, being on the lakefront, that may be interested in helping you with that being the yacht club, to make even more success of the event, should be looked at. But with that said, I think again I would ask council to give positive consideration to this application, and of course further working with you to make this event a success.
I think the yacht club's a great idea. I didn't really think about it. I thought about Sandy Surfside area, but I wasn't sure what was going on there. I met Frank, I think the president of the yacht club, and when we were talking about our shoreline concerns in Gravelly Bay, he jumped right on board with me. He was really excited to see an effort and some interest because, yes, they also have concerns. So I'm open to that as a suggestion, and I'll make a call to him. I have his number. And let me know what you want to do about the hot dog purchases. You know, we're less than 2 weeks away, and I just have to make some decisions. If there's a way to get great inexpensive hot dogs locally, I'm all for it. If it's an issue about letterhead, then, and you permit me to bring hot dogs from Buffalo, then I'll do it. Just let me know. Give me some idea. Let me know. Thank you.
Let me deal with the hot dogs. Okay?
Sounds good. Sounds great.
So it's a minor issue, Tom. You know, I'll deal with that. I have no problem through my business donating some hot dogs, and I'm sure many others will jump on board throughout the community. So I'm not too concerned about that. What I'm more concerned with is getting that community together, that part of this community, that Gravelly Bay community together, working toward that deliverable of hopping on board the ultimate team, which is with Lorraine, with Cedar Bay, and Gravelly Bay working together toward what we're trying to do here. I think that's the bigger picture, and that's what we're trying to accomplish here. And your effort adds to that, so I'm sure it's very much supported. So, you know, the micro issues, the small issues we can deal with, but ultimately to get to the bigger issue, let's get to that and ultimately get, you know, to what we're trying to accomplish here.
Super, thank you.
Okay. Councilor Steele?
Thank you, Your Worship. There are several amendments that staff have given to us. If we could go through these to whether the council is in favor of adding these or not. I think the first one has general consensus already that the applicant supply a site plan for approval by the Fire and Emergency Services Department and Niagara Regional Police Service, which is to include information with regards to dealing with tents, cooking areas, and potential traffic issues. If we could add that first.
Yeah.
You want me to keep going?
Do you guys want to separate this? You want to do it all in block? Councilor Doucette?
The only concern I have is that we may be spinning our wheels here in that if he goes to the yacht club and the yacht club agrees to it, he doesn't need any of this. So.
Oh, definitely, but if they say no.
Whoa, hold on, Councilor. Go ahead.
So it's just a concern of mine. Now, if they do say no, we will. So maybe if you want to put it in as proviso, but I think it should be voted on separately from the main one. So.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Let's bang these out separately, Councilor.
Yeah, that's fine.
And that's what, that way, it'll be cleaner, yeah. Okay, the first one, let's just add as a friendly amendment with respect to the supply of the site plan. I think that goes without saying, so I'm not going to get into that. But the rest of them, Councilor, do you want to put that as part, or as an amendment? You want to move that? The first one, number one?
Number one? Yes, that we add
Okay.
that.
Okay, do I have a seconder to that? Councilor Elliott? Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Number two, Councilor?
I'll add number two, the proposal for the provision of a crossing guard be referred to community services.
Okay, do I have a seconder to that? Councilor Danch, questions or comments? All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Councilor Bodnar, go ahead.
Just referred, not, so they came back with a price for it or something like that, or whatever, it's not done yet.
Councilor?
I would, that's what I would believe with that, yeah.
Okay. Which might be a moot point if in fact it's at the yacht club. Okay. Mr. Howe?
Question, Mr. Mayor. What do you want the crossing guard to do? Like cross traffic at, I'm not sure, on Oak, I know it sounds like a dumb question, but I'm all of a sudden here, crossing Lakeshore, crossing Oakwood, crossing Bayview. Like, there's nothing marked there. There isn't a crossing guard there, and I have some concerns on liability of city putting out to cross traffic for a private event. I'm sorry to interject. But
Thank you, Mr. Howe. Mr. Heckham?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have the same concerns because they're really not trained in that respect, and they're actually crossing where there's a controlled intersection with a little bit more care and control. So from a liability standpoint, I'm not sure where we stand on that. So I have to stand behind the CAO's decision.
Thank you. Councilor?
Well, I believe the way I read it is that that's exactly why we're referring it. so that staff can come back to the proponent and say, look, these are the reasons we're not supplying a crossing guard. Not to say, yes, we're giving a crossing guard, but for them to take this issue and let the proponent know yay or nay with regards to a crossing guard. I agree with staff what they've already said, but I think that has to be, that message has to be sent to the proponent. So that's the way I read that. Going on to item 3, I think it's.
Let's do them
Oh, sorry, I
individually.
apologize, yeah.
Councillor Demaray?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to suggest that you do what, or that they do what we used to do for Circle Trek. Rather than have a crossing guard from the city, we asked Niagara Regional if they would have one of their auxiliary or the OPP auxiliary volunteer to come in for the day, because really no one else is equipped to do that.
Thank you. And just to add to that, and this is more for Harry, for staff, Councillor Steele alluded to this earlier, there is a concern with respect to that corner. I lived down in that area, and that corner can be very, very challenging, especially with some people that aren't thinking as well as they should be when they're driving, coming around that corner, doing some high speeds. So it's, and there's a blind spot, obviously. So there is a concern, and we can relay that to the applicant. So that's fine. All those in favor? Opposed? That be carried. Item 3, Councillor.
Your Worship, I believe this is already in the wording under the request for banners, flyers, tents, and ice. I think that says be declined. I think that already is in the wording.
Okay. Item 4.
Item
Unless
4.
does members of council want that changed? Does a member of council want to change that? Okay, so we're going to leave that. Item 4, Councillor.
Thank you. Item 4, I would say no to, that we don't include that based on what the CAO has told us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Item 5, I would add that the request to permit the posting of a banner and signs in the neighborhood surrounding the event location be approved by staff.
Okay, that's fine. You might as well go to the last one, Bill.
Actually, I've got 2 more because I added one.
Okay.
Number 6 is that whereas the proposed benefit is not an event organized or managed by the city of Port Colborne, that any promotional material not include reference to the city of Port Colborne.
Carry on.
And my number 7 was have Mr. Sahaki contact the Lakeside Yacht Club as a potential partner and site for this event.
Seconder to that, please. Councillor Elliott. Any questions or comments to that? All in favor? Opposed? That'll be carried. Thank you, members. Okay, now to the main motion as amended. Are there any further questions or comments? Members of staff, any comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That'll be carried. Thank you. Good job, guys. Now, we will move on to item 1.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that council approve the draft bylaw to repeal bylaw 4914139006, which was the bylaw that adopted the 2006 official plan attached as Appendix C. 2, that council adopt the official plan attached here to as Appendix D. 3, that the city clerk be authorized and directed to make application for approval to the Regional Municipality of Niagara. And 4, that staff be directed to give public notice of council's adoption of the official plan in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, and that any objection or appeals received be forwarded to the Region of Niagara.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder to that, please? Seconder, Councillor Kenny. I haven't got you enough tonight, so Councillor Kenny. And I see that look. Councillor Kenny bites hard. When she bites, she bites. Questions or comments? Members of council? You know what I'm going to do before I go to questions or comments? I'm going to ask Mr. Aquilina to give us a quick synopsis. I know there's a 269-page official plan you have here, and by the way, great job to you and your team, Dan. This has been long overdue, and you guys have done a wonderful job, especially with a lot of the changes that have been coming about, the gateway, provincial policies, etc. You guys just did a dynamite job here. And also I'm going to ask council, and before I get you to Dan, I'm going to ask council for leave to allow a gentleman, Mr. Scott Patterson, is it Scott Patterson, to speak on this. He has a few comments he would like to make on behalf of his firm, his planning firm. So if I can ask for leave of council first, mover and seconder, please. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Doucette, questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. I'm going to ask Mr. Patterson to come up following Dan's quick synopsis of the report, and we'll entertain his comments as well. Mr. Aquilina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the opportunity. As I mentioned to council at the public meeting, this is a significant milestone in the city's land use planning program. Council knows what the official plan is for. It's a policy document that guides the development of the city in the long term. As the mayor had mentioned, there are a lot of changes that happen at the provincial level and at the regional level that we had to ensure that the plan made conformity with. This plan was brought forward. Council knows that the current plan we have right now is a 1978 document. 1978, members of council. Many amendments over the years. The city undertook a new official plan. Again, with many of the changes at the provincial level, there needed to be conformity with it. Council, however, adopted the plan back in 2006. A lot of concerns were expressed both at the provincial and regional level. Over the years since 2006, staff, 2006 plan was prepared by a consultant. Staff took it upon themselves to make all the required revisions to the policies that you have before you this evening. And as the mayor mentioned, we have new regional initiatives, the economic gateway, the growth management strategy, and so on and so forth. Again, both provincially and regionally, this plan does conform. This is before you this evening. The recommendation seeks council's adoption of the plan, and that is the recommendation of the Planning and Development Department.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilina. And as council will see in the vision statement of the plan and strategic directions, it has taken on a lot of the direction by this and past councils with respect to all aspects of the community. And that, of course, dealing with our strategic direction and direct outcomes of that direction with respect to the planning allowances that are contained within this report. So with that, I'll stop there, and I will now take on the opportunity to allow Mr. Patterson to speak with respect to this official plan. Mr. Patterson, welcome. And thank you for your patience this evening. Did you have some popcorn in the back? Scott, welcome. It's great to have you out.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and members of council. Again, my name is Scott Patterson. I'm with the planning firm of Rush, Patterson & Associates. We're based out of Kitchener. And I represent, or my firm represents, A&W Food Services, the TDL Group Corp., which is effectively Tim Hortons, McDonald's Restaurants of Canada, Wendy's Restaurants of Canada, and the Ontario Restaurant, Hotel, Motel Association. In your information packet, you will see a correspondence letter that we provided on September the 4th. This letter noted our concerns, and those concerns are primarily with just two sections of the official plan, those being section 3.6, which is the downtown commercial, which permits restaurants without takeout or drive-through facilities, and section 5.3.3.5J, which is the Westward Park secondary plan, neighborhood commercial, again, which says large-scale commercial uses in drive-through restaurants shall be prohibited. Our concerns with that is that consistently the Ontario Municipal Board and case law have noted that prohibition-based policies at the level of official plan are not appropriate, and we have been consistent throughout Ontario in this regard. We've worked with the City of St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, Grimsby, and Pelham to have prohibitions removed from their official plans prior to adoption. And prior to this matter going forward to the region for approval, we would ask that this council deal with it at the local level as well. So in summary, we would simply ask that these prohibition-based policies be removed and we currently have no other concerns with the official plan moving forward in this regard. Again, thank you very much for your time, and we'd appreciate your consideration of this request.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Members of council, any questions or comments to the presenter? With none, thank you, Mr. Patterson. Truly appreciate it. Dan, I'm going to start the questioning off with respect to the presentation. Can the prohibition of any aspect of a development be taken on at the site plan stage, or is it appropriate to actually have it in the OP?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The official plan contains the policies of the city. If there's any actual development, we're going to refer to what the zoning bylaw actually allows legally as a use on the property. I can say that the policies that are before you are ones that were adopted by council in 2006. We just continued forward with that plan that was adopted by council in 2006. We have since 2006, we've completed community improvement plans and urban design strategies that directly influence the downtown commercial policies. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to get into a debate of what the consulting firm is saying. We haven't had time to actually look into it in too much detail. All I can say is that based on the cursory review of the decisions by the OMB, I am not sure what other communities have actually have a community improvement plan in place where they've actually studied the need not to have drive-through facilities. I'll leave it at that. It's something that those comments, as the consulting firm just mentioned this evening, will be something that will be brought forward to the region. The region ultimately is the approval authority. They can make an amendment to the plan. It's something that they'll have to consider if they want to even have it come back to this city council for approval before the region approves it. I know the planning committee is going to have the OP before them later this, so I should refer that September the 11th, and then ultimately to regional council. Let me get those exact dates.
I think it's September 18th, actually, I think, Dan.
September 18th? Yeah, it's in the, Mr. Mayor, it's in the
And then the regional
body
council.
of the report, I believe,
And the regional
page
council is
32.
September 27th.
It'll be to the integrated community planning on November the 7th,
November 7th.
and then
okay.
on regional council's agenda for November the 15th.
Good.
So the comments that have been made this evening, they will be brought forward to the region. Again, Mr. Mayor, it's going to be a decision of the regional level of government whether or not they want to entertain those comments that have been made. Ultimately, it's a regional council decision. City council is not the approval authority, so it's prudent at that time that the region makes the final decision whether or not they want to include those policies to be removed. And they'll make this city council aware of what their decision is, or if they want further direction from this city council.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilina. Questions or comments, members of council? Councilor Kenny and then Councilor Steele.
Thank you, Your Worship. When reading this report, Dan, I saw that in 2006, the Regional Council never really formally endorsed our plan, right? Is that correct?
Mr. Aquilina.
Mr. Mayor, through you to Councilor Kennedy, that's absolutely correct. As I mentioned at the public meeting, that 2006 plan was brought forward to the regional staff level for review. Many revisions were required because not only did the region have concerns because it didn't conform with their regional policy plan, the province of Ontario had concerns because it didn't conform to the growth plan or the provincial policy statement. So that's why that plan sat idle, because it requires conformity with both plans in order for regional council to actually approve it.
Councilor.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Aquilina, but I kind of agree with the presenter in that when you use the word prohibitive, it's kind of like a negative cast on that whole plan. So is there a reason why we can't take that out? Like can we, when we submit our new plan, recommend that be taken out? Or even though they're still the governing or the approving body, the regional council, is it possible for us to do that?
Mr. Aquilina.
Mr. Mayor, the correspondence that has been forwarded by the consulting firm, they cite other cases where the official plan does not permit it. However, it's permitted provided the following design guidelines are in conformity. Okay. They have to justify, and it still requires an official plan amendment. Sure. It still requires a zoning bylaw amendment. At the end of the day, there's still an amending process that's required, whether or not, if the policies that they want to bring forward are there, at the end of the day, they still need an official plan amendment.
Okay. All right.
And a zoning bylaw amendment.
Okay.
But I think the difference here is between case law is the fact that this is the design guidelines are as part of a community improvement plan. Correct, Dan? In comparison to just simply a downtown area.
Yes.
Commercial area.
Correct, Mr. Mayor. Our policies are enforced by the fact that we actually have done an urban design strategy and a community improvement plan that state the exact same thing, that those should not be permitted, so to speak, within the downtown commercial areas. We do permit drive-throughs within the highway service commercial area. We permit them in the shopping plaza commercial area. So it's not as if the city of Port Colborne prohibits drive-throughs. They're just frowned upon in the downtown designations of the city.
Councilor Steele.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to continue on what Councillor Kenny said, so can you give us a little bit more detail as far as if this was left in, what the procedure is to get it out? I think you've touched on that. Secondly, if it was taken out, what is the procedure on our end if somebody actually wanted to do it? Like, then what kicks in?
Mr. Aquilino?
Mr. Mayor, as I mentioned previously,
amendment.
if it is left out, the region of Niagara staff are going to have the same comments that are before you this evening. They'll have time to actually look into it into detail and to make comments to the Integrated Planning Committee whether or not there should be policies, and they could frame those policies to include, or they can continue not to include them. Ultimately, Regional Council is going to make the decision, direction, or Integrated Community Plan is going to make the direction whether or not they want to move that back to the city for inclusion or deal with it at the time of the regional approval. And they can do that, certainly can do that.
But I think it boils down to an OP amendment.
Not necessarily, Mr. Mayor. It could be just a revision.
No, what I'm saying is that if it's left in, then the applicant, if in fact wanted to put a drive-through in the CIP area, would have to make application for an official plan amendment.
Mr. Mayor, if it is left in as is, and if the region of Niagara leaves it as is, and there is no OMB appeal, then yes, an official plan amendment would be required to have a drive-through in the downtown commercial designation of the city.
Councilor?
Thank you, Your Worship. I was on the next track that this has been approved by the region, whether that is left, no, if we go to that step. So the region takes this as it is and says, fine, okay, we're passing it, and it's done. You've explained that it's got to be an OP amendment and a zoning amendment with regards to putting this downtown. All I'm saying is that if it went to the region or the region takes it out, so once it's approved and it's not in there, what can the city do if somebody wanted to do it? Is it carte blanche open business then to, if somebody come in and bought a whole block of businesses and decided to put a McDonald's on one corner and apartment buildings and stores and whatever? Does the city have any clout once it's out of the official plan?
Mr. Aquilino?
Mr. Mayor, I would believe that if the region is going to consider the request by the firm to have that policy removed, they're going to ensure what has been done elsewhere to actually still require an official plan amendment and a zoning amendment, provided the following is in conformity. To do an urban design strategy to identify how, and if it has no impact on the downtown area. That is what I've seen before. Minutes of settlement, I've seen that. Ultimately, the region of Niagara is going to make the decision whether or not they want to include or exclude. And if they do include, they may have policies that are subject to permitting a drive-through. What needs to be met? The targets. Justification.
Plus on top of that, you have the opportunity for site plan control as well.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. If it is left in, any development for a drive-through would require site plan control on top of an amendment to the official plan, an amendment to the zoning bylaw, because once, if approved, the next step obviously is to do the zoning on the property. Ultimately, a site plan is going to be required. So as I have to repeat myself, council can leave what we have before you, and then ultimately all this information is going to be then sent up to the region of Niagara for a further review. And they'll make the determination whether or not they need some revision to our plan that has been, if adopted.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Members, further questions or comments? I think we've really beat this one to death, and over the course of the last well, for some of us, for the better part of the last decade and a half. Never get back. Actually, again, Dan, I have to congratulate you and your staff. This is very exciting. This official plan since 1978 has been long in waiting to get it revamped, and I know you've worked personally, as well as your staff have worked very hard to bring this forward. I know it may seem a bit dry when you read a planning document, but I tell you, I have to give you guys a lot of credit. This is not a dry document. This document really outlines the strategies with respect to what we've put forward, not just this council, but previous councils to date, and is really, through the planning process, has really outlined and communicated and articulated those strategies as it relates to economic development, as it relates to engineering, infrastructure, provincial policies, regional policies, and the list goes on. It's not that bad of a read. Bob just gave me a note here. Do you want not right now. But good on you guys. Well done. And the last part I wanted to mention is the fact of the gateway. I think the gateway adds an extra dynamic to all of this with respect to the new employment lands that are being established along the Canal 140 and the main and short line rails. So again, quite exciting for the city of Port Colborne to have this put forward. I'm very confident the region will have it passed by the end of November, and hopefully by the 1st of January we'll have new industrial lands, new areas for growth, and of course the CIP is being identified as new incentive opportunities for our investment sector. So again, good job. Well done. Members of council, with no further comments or questions, all those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. And once again, Dan, thank you. Members, we'll now move on to notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion this evening? With none, I will ask for a motion to adjourn this portion of the meeting. Councillor Demery, Councillor Butters, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you, members. We'll now move on to the council portion of our agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any addendum items?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. None this evening.
Thank you. Can we get that fixed? Poor Ashley, every time she turns that thing on. Yes. Members of council, confirmation of the agenda, please. Mover and seconder, Councillor Danch, Councillor Doucette, questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Disclosures of interest? With none, I have two sets of minutes I'd like to move forward, and I'll be looking for a mover and seconder. The minutes of the 33rd meeting special of council dated August 27, 2012, and the minutes of the 34th meeting regular of council, same date, August 27, 2012. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Steele, Councillor Demery. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Items requiring separate discussion. The items listed on your agenda, mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bodner, Councillor Doucette, questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. We have three proclamations, members of council, and once again, I will be looking for a mover and seconder. The first proclamation is that whereas National Child Day is a day to celebrate children and to demonstrate our respect for their rights and aspirations. And whereas National Child Day is celebrated throughout the world, commemorating the adoption of the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of the Child in 1959 and the United Nations adoption of the Convention on the Rights of the Child in 1989. And whereas National Child Day holds significance for Niagara, as it is one of the first communities in Canada to institute a Charter of Rights for children and for teens. And whereas this charter has since been endorsed by the Niagara region, including 12 municipalities, all local school boards, and several local businesses and community organizations. Now therefore, I, Mayor Vance M. Badaway, do hereby proclaim November 20th, 2012 as National Child Day here in the city of Port Colborne in recognition of our youngest citizens. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Doucette. Councillor Kenny, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you, members. Our second resolution is that whereas lupus is an autoimmune disease that can cause severe damage to the tissue and organs in the body and in some cases death. And whereas more than 5 million people worldwide suffer the devastating effects of this disease, and each year over 100,000 young women, men, and children are newly diagnosed with lupus, the great majority of whom are women of childbearing age. And whereas medical research efforts into lupus and the discovery of safer, more effective treatments for lupus patients are underfunded in comparison with diseases of comparable magnitude and severity. And whereas many physicians worldwide are unaware of symptoms and the many health effects of lupus, causing people with lupus to suffer for many years before they obtain a correct diagnosis and medical treatment. And whereas there is a deep unmet need worldwide to educate and support individuals and families affected by lupus. And whereas there is an urgent need to increase awareness in communities worldwide of this debilitating impact of lupus. Now therefore, I, Mayor Vance M. Badaway, proclaim October 2012 as October is Lupus Awareness Month here in the city of Port Colborne. When lupus organizations around the world call for increases in public and private sector funding for medical research on lupus, targeted education programs for health professionals, patients, and the public, and worldwide recognition of lupus as a significant public health issue. Members of Council, I will be requiring a mover and seconder for this recommendation for Council support. Councillor Butters, Councillor Steele. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you, members. A very worthwhile cause, and of course, in dire need of attention. Members, I'll now be introducing my third proclamation, and I'll be looking once again for a mover and seconder, that whereas 2012 is the 20th anniversary of the Therapy Dog Program run by the St. John Ambulance. Members, you heard that presentation tonight and the reference to same, and of course, their need for this recommendation to be passed. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Vance M. Badaway, in recognition of the 20th anniversary of the St. John Ambulance Therapy Dog Program, proclaim the month of September 2012 as St. John Ambulance Therapy Dog Month here in the city of Port Colborne as a way of honoring the canine and human volunteers who work in our community and those who are ill, elderly, disabled, and disenfranchised throughout here in the city of Port Colborne as well as throughout the Niagara region. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Butters, Councillor Desmarais, questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you, members. We'll now move on to notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion, members? With that, Madam Clerk, the introduction of the bylaws, please.
That the following bylaws be read 3 times and finally passed. Bylaw 5854-10812 being a bylaw to repeal bylaw 4914-13906 being a bylaw to adopt the official plan of the city of Port Colborne and to concurrently rescind and repeal bylaw 5233978 and various other bylaws being the existing official plan and any and all amendments thereto. Bylaw 5855-10912 being a bylaw to adopt the official plan of the city of Port Colborne and to concurrently rescind and repeal bylaw 5233978 and various other bylaws being the existing official plan and any and all amendments thereto. Bylaw 5856-11012 being a bylaw to adopt an acting building inspector when the office of the chief building official is vacant. And finally, bylaw 5857-11112 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 5841-9512 being a bylaw to establish fees and charges for cemeteries in the city of Port Colborne.
Thank you, Ashley. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Doucette, Councillor Danch, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. I had to get a kick out of the one bylaw, the repeal of 7233978. I'm assuming that 78 is from 1978?
That's correct.
Long time coming, eh, Dan? That's great. Thank you. Members, all those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. We're now going to move on to the confirmatory bylaw. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That the following bylaw be read 3 times and finally passed. Bylaw 5858-11212 being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at its regular meeting of Council, September 10, 2012.
Thank you, Ashley. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Doucette. Councillor Desmarais. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Before I ask for my next motion, I will introduce our next dates for our meetings. We have a September 24th Committee of the Whole, as well as council meeting here in the chamber beginning at 6:30 p.m., as well as our following committee and council meeting, once again here in the chamber, beginning at 6:30 p.m. on October 9th. That's a Tuesday, by the way, after the holiday weekend. Once again here in the chamber, beginning at 6:30 p.m. As well, Harry, again, welcome aboard. It's great to have you on board. Be careful what you wish for. Put your running shoes on. We're moving quite quick, so it's great to have you aboard, and we look forward to working with you. So with that, members, I'll be looking for a motion to go into closed session. The council do now proceed in camera in order to address the following matters. A, the minutes of the closed session portion of the August 27, 2012 council meeting. B, confidential community and corporate services finance division report number 2012-30 concerning a tax registration matter and potential land purchase pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. And finally, confidential memorandum from the Director of Planning and Development Services dated August 30th, 2012, concerning a legal matter related to lands located within the Lowell Industrial Park pursuant to Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392A, the security of the property of the municipality or local board, 2392C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or by a local board. Have a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Steele, Councillor Elliott, are there any questions or comments? Members? With none, all those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Councillor Butters, are you giving me attitude all of a sudden? Members of council, I will adjourn this portion of the meeting, move into closed session, and to all those, have a wonderful week. We look forward to seeing you at our next meeting or throughout the community.